Hello, everybody. Welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today is Wednesday, the 15th of April, 2020, and we are amidst the shelter-in-place laws and rules that are in effect across the United States. I mention that for historical purposes, as this video will be watched years into the future. Somebody will be watching this in 2025 and think back 5 years ago and think, wow, I remember that. And it won't seem as bad looking back on it as it feels when you're in the middle of it, I predict. But be that as it may, I put that in the video because, as I mentioned, people watch it well into the future and beyond. And say hello to everybody joining in the chat room, getting a little earlier start than I thought I was going to be able to do. I've been trying to broadcast the last couple of days. It's been difficult balancing everything going on. It's a lot going on with setting up a secondary location for filming. That is a whole process in and of itself. And maybe even later tonight I'll do a test broadcast from the new location. The upload bandwidth there is not good. I'm working on resolving that, but I'm kind of curious what kind of video output I can get with 3 megabits up. What else? Other stuff going on, obviously, with the business and in personal life, and it's just keeping me very, very busy. That being said, I've had more people than ever before reach out with questions. And when I try to explain to people that things are very busy and I don't have time, and these are people that don't contribute, right? They just want to take. And I'm very polite with them. I say hello, thank you, and then they start asking technical questions. I advise them to go to techguy.org for free technical support, and then they continue to ask me questions. I explain to them I'm very busy, I don't have time to chat, and they continue to send me messages. And I have to start blocking people. It's unfortunate that I'm starting to understand why people don't respond to emails. Like if you email a celebrity, there's a very odd chance that you would ever get a response. I'm starting to understand why that when you respond to people who, they're complete strangers on the internet, they've never contributed to the channel before, and you explain, look, I'm very busy. On top of that, I'm also getting messages from people who are contributors, and those people, obviously, I make time for them because they're supporting me. I want to support them back. It puts me in a very bad place, which is it's easier to just not even respond to people now. And I never wanted to get there. I never wanted to do that. But it's starting to sink in. You email Linus Tech Tips. Good luck getting a response. I'm starting to understand why. And it's unfortunate that society has become that way, that there's no boundaries respected for a certain portion of the population, and they have to be blocked. And then just regret even responding to them, because if I never responded to them, it wouldn't have escalated. And it turns into name, they'll say I'm a jerk, they'll say, I thought you were a nice guy, whatever, because they didn't get what they wanted. And if I just didn't respond, it would have never happened. And that's happening more now than it's ever happened before. So, again, for people that support the channel, of course, that's a different situation. When complete strangers reach out and they've never contributed anything and they expect things from me, it's not a kind thing to do to another person. Anyway, welcome to my life. I'm dealing with that. Welcome in all my friends there in blue. Good to see everybody. We've got 180 people watching right now. And today what I wanted to do, now that I got all that off my chest, I want to finish up the repair I was doing for Shelby and Dwayne. The computer had bad RAM. And then they had an old mechanical 2.5-inch hard drive in there that was 10 years old that was slowing the whole thing down on an otherwise brand new and fast build. And they had a relatively small SATA SSD in there. So we put in an NVMe SSD, pulled the other two things out, and replaced the RAM, pulled the Cooler Master Hyper 212 CPU cooler off of it to replace it with a Mugen 5 cooler from Scythe. Come to realize that the backplate was missing. Not from the cooler. The cooler doesn't include the backplate for AMD. AMD CPUs have their own backplate that Scythe reuses on the Mugen 5, but the Hyper 212 Evo replaces it. And unfortunately, they had somebody do the work, and that person did not give them the spare parts, and they don't have it. So the good news is the backplates are widely available online. I ordered one from Newegg and one from Amazon to see which one would get here first. The one I ordered from Newegg, they both run under $10. The one from Newegg arrived in 3 days, and the one from Amazon, it's been over a week. It's still not here. I think I'm going to see it next week sometime. But I thought it'd be a good idea to have a spare. So I thought, whichever one comes first, then I can continue my video. To my surprise, it arrived earlier than expected. Here's what it looks like. I think this was $6.99 at Newegg. And of course, we don't need the yellow parts here. We just need that big backplate right there. And it's standard. It fits all AMD AM4 motherboards. Your board would have come with that from the factory. But if you had, like in this case, replaced, if you had installed a third-party cooler that uses its own custom backplate, it's important that you keep all of your old parts. You'll always see me do that. You'll always, when I do a brand new build, I always emphasize that the customer gets all the parts I'm not using, anything extra SATA cables, extra screws, even the front bay covers. If we're putting a DVD drive in, they get the cover, because the unexpected happens. And then when you need that specific part, especially if it's like a front bay cover for a case, it may be very difficult to find. Furthermore, it's a shame to have to buy something you already had. So I recommend you always keep all of your spare parts, because you just don't know what you're going to need in the future. I'm of the belief that it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And since you've already got it anyway, why throw it away? What's the point of that? In the case of parts, spare parts left over from a computer build, they're all small parts. I do the same thing when I install the Mugen 5 cooler. It comes with a lot of different mounting standoffs and parts for different configurations. Well, who's to say that the customer is going to keep this configuration forever? Sooner or later, it's going to change. Maybe they want to continue to use that Mugen 5. Well, maybe they won't be able to if they don't have those parts, and it'd be darn near impossible to just find standoffs for it. And for what it would cost, you might as well just buy a whole new cooler. So this is a prime example of exactly why you always save spare parts. So this has delayed this repair. I don't know, we're going on a few weeks now. It will eventually be all edited together in one big video. A job for my sister to do. And then this is the live version, which has a lot of this sort of chit-chat in it. So if you're just interested in getting to the gist of things, stand by. In a couple weeks, the completed video will be available. My thanks, of course, to Wayne and to Shelby for being patient with me and giving me time to do this, and allowing me to make some modifications that, well, I've got it. I figured, let's just do this right. And then, of course, with the whole COVID situation affecting shipping and delivery, it has really slowed me down, and I was already slow getting stuff done. In the meantime, I see a couple contributions have come in, so thank you to Kevin Sears. He contributed $10. He says, hello, Carey, Wrenches, and friends. Hey, Kevin, thank you. Steve Warrington contributed $2. He says, good to see all is well. And Rick Hubbard contributed £3. Thank you, guys. Thanks for supporting the channel, helping to keep me sponsor-free. We did have a very good response with the RoboForm offer, and RoboForm wants to work with me on a more regular basis. It'll be the closest thing to sponsorship I've ever had. And RoboForm, myself and Simon over at RoboForm have been sort of kicking around some ideas on other offers. We don't want to repeat the same offer. We don't want to do the same thing. And we don't want to do it too soon. And they have other products like GoodSync and other partner products like Zone Alarm. And so we're kicking around some ideas to put maybe a package together. And I'm really excited about it. It's great working with a company that I think adds value to my channel. I'm proud to be associated with them. I think they have offer a good, solid, mature software solution to password management that's been around, like 20 years. They're not some new company, fly-by-night, who knows what's going to happen next. The product is aggressively priced, so everybody can afford it. And I think it's a great deal for the viewers. It's a good deal for me and my channel, and it's a good deal for them to acquire new customers that are that would benefit from their product. Finding that kind of a sponsorship is very difficult. It's a very fine filter, as it was explained to me, that potential sponsors have to fit through. And I've had plenty of offers come in from companies that want me to sell their junk, and I just don't even respond to them. I mean, everything from headphones to software game keys and Windows keys. Not doing that here. I would find that to be a very desperate situation if you see me hawking Windows keys. There's a level of desperation. I hope you never, ever see me do that. Andrew Dorset just contributed $2 New Zealand dollars. Says, nice to see you again, Carey. Hey, Andrew, good to see you. Hope everybody's doing well. Thanks, you guys. I see, Stephen Bernstein, Zero Core, Sherry McFarland. I see some familiar faces in there. Take a minute to once again acknowledge a couple of very generous contributors. Peter Brooks. I'm sorry, not Peter Brooks. I always mess up with this. Peter Laycock has been very generous in dealing with some health issues, and I recently heard from him that things are looking up, which is fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. David Hale, of course, who we had on the show. John Jack Wilson, who has contributed, even gave a brand new laptop away like last year so we could give it to a disabled American veteran. Another thing that's sort of weighing heavy on me is this, the giveaways for the disabled American veterans. We gave away 4 of those computers. 3 of the people never so much as replied that they received the computer or said thank you or anything. Just never heard from them again. And the 4th one complained. They said thank you, but they still complained. So I'm a little... Oh, and then I had other people reaching out to me privately asking for a free computer, and I said, why are you emailing me? And they said, well, you said to. I said, no, that's not what I said. You've got to go to the community. They're not my computers. It's the community gives those out. It's the community who decides who gets them. You have to be a part of the community. So there's just people, apparently words getting out that I'm giving away computers to disabled American veterans, and there's a little bit of entitlement that I'm experiencing that's got me quite turned off, given that sacrifice that I made to make that happen, knowing that we're in this COVID situation and I prioritize that. 3 out of the 4 people couldn't even say, hey, I got it. They couldn't say thank you. So I'm a little burned on that. I have more than 20 more to give away, but I don't think I'm going to rush it anymore. I feel like, I tried to do something good. And again, it's really the community. It's not me doing it, but I'm the middle, I'm the guy who gets it done. Once I have a direction and the source of the computers comes from the community, and where the computers go is decided by the community. I'm just the guy that facilitates that, and I'm just kind of sad, ultimately, that it didn't feel like it was appreciated. So I'm not gonna prioritize that anymore. I'm gonna get back to work. I wanted you to all know that. It was shocking to me, shocking. So. We're still going to do it. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm going to punish everybody because of the actions of a few, but I'm going to not prioritize it. I'll get around to it when I have time. So I just wanted you guys to be aware of what's going on there. A couple more contributions have come in. Wonderful. We've got contribution from Ralph Souther, contributed $2. Radio DX contributed $5. He says, cheers from St. Clair Shores, Michigan. Oh, I wish I was there right now. Thank you. Sterling's contributed $20. He goes, this is to help boost your internet speed at the new office or for a case of Coke or whichever comes first. Thanks, Sterling. It's a little more complicated than that, but yeah, I'm trying to get it done. Gary Tatum has contributed $20. He says, hey, I just want to say thanks for the RoboForm deal. Best purchase I've made in years. Wonderful. That's awesome. I know RoboForm appreciated it. I appreciate it. Everybody wins. I love situations like that. Rick Rubisets contributed €5. He says, I bought Uncle Carey's Windows Optimizer, and what a great tool. It works wonders on every PC I've used it on. Have a Coke on me. Hey, cheers, Rick. Thank you so much. I think I will. Thank you. Appreciate it. Cog Gin has contributed £10 and says, keep calm and carry on. P.S. There's a T-shirt in there somewhere. We sort of went through that already, but yeah, maybe now's truer than ever. Ralph Souther has contributed $3. Hey, thank you, Ralph. And Franklin Adams, contributed $10. He says, this is for the best tech I know, Carey. Is it cool if I refer a friend to you later? The beast is still good. Right on, Franklin. Thank you. All my business comes from referrals. I always appreciate referrals. Unfortunately, right now, I cannot take on any more work. And I have several people that I have advised to reach out to me this time next month to find out, if I've cleaned my plate and ready for a second helping. Right now, my plate is filled with more than I can eat. So it's a good problem to have. But I've never, like I said before, I've never been in a position to turn away work before, but I don't have any choice right now. So as long as people are patient, and I will eventually get through this work. I'll need more work, right? I still have to eat next month and the month after that. So all referrals, I appreciate that very much. And if we can make it happen, that's great. John Craig has contributed £5. He says, we're all realizing that cabin fever is better than the bad kind. Okay. William Cregan has contributed $9.99. He says, I love the videos, Carey. Highlight of the day. Hey, thank you, William. I appreciate that. And Josh Jordan, wow, $24.99 he's contributed. He says, thanks for all the videos. I'm new to building, and it's helped me a lot. Hey, thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. Make sure you're a moderator in here. Again, your contributions to the channel help keep me sponsor free. You're helping to keep me from selling Windows keys. And you're the sponsors here, so I appreciate that. And hopefully RoboForm will jump on board here very soon. I'd be very proud to have them as a sponsor and look forward to working with them. And thanks to you guys for helping to make that happen. Michael in Maryland has contributed $2, and Thomas Robinson contributed £3. Once again, thank you guys so much. And I think that catches me up here. Eric says, 21 days ago was my birthday. Well, happy belated birthday, Eric. Alex says, I got a random internet increase recently. Do you think it will go back after the virus? I don't know. You'll have to ask your internet company that. P.L. Chelman says, hello from Belgium. Hey, welcome in. Where's everybody watching from? Give us a shout out. Tell me where you are watching from. Is it Colin Hilton has joined us? Always good to see. Good friend of the channel, Colin Hilton. All these people in blue are all good friends of the channel. Thomas Robinson, Gabriel Granados, and of course Luke Grenia, obviously, and Vern Mahoney, and Johnny Craig, Randall Hill, Dusan Packler, Mark Baggett, Sherry McFarland, of course, Sharon Idle, of course, Donnie Cubbits, and Franklin Adams, and William Dawson, Zarian Art, and Zero Core, and the names go on and on and on and on. We have such wonderful, what a wonderful community we've created, and thank you for being a part of it. And here come all of the names of the countries and states that people are watching from: Pennsylvania, the UK, California, Monaco and Scotland, New Jersey and Ohio and Sweden and North Carolina and British Columbia and Hungary and Greece, Alabama, the UK, Germany, Atlanta and Alabama, Pennsylvania, New Zealand, Minnesota, and more from Ohio and Massachusetts and South Carolina, Arkansas. And Duga57's contributed $5 Australian, says he's on the east coast of Australia. So we are worldwide, as you can tell here in the chat room. Brooklyn, New York, and Orlando, Florida, Oakville, Canada, London in England, Stratfordshire in the UK, and Granite City, Illinois. More from the UK. Robin Tahav joining us from Thailand. Steve's joining us from Texas. Andrew from Illinois. And Growler in North Carolina. Rick Allen says, if this is the slow mode in the chat, I hate to see the fast. Exactly. Malta and Portugal also being represented, as well as Romania, Selby in the UK, Billings, Montana, Henley in Lancashire, Nova Scotia, more from Pennsylvania. Right on. Thank you so much for letting me know where you're watching me from. And if you don't mind, I'd like to maybe, I don't know, do a little work. Is that all right? Gerard DeMonte has contributed 80, I never quite know what that monetary symbol is. I have to Google that. Is that rupees? Yeah, that's 80 Indian rupees. That's about $1.04 US. Thank you so much again for supporting and contributing to the channel. I appreciate that. Big amounts, small amounts, it all adds up. So, all right, what I wanted to do is install the Mugen 5 cooler. I've kind of put everything together here with the system, all the parts that belong to it. That's how I stay organized. You'll see the tape is still on the bottom. We're not removing that until we're ready to install the cooler. Of course, we've got the fan, and these are all the spare cooler parts. We're going to need the thermal compound, which is in here. Look how organized I am. These are some spare screws left over from the work I'm doing. I'm going to send those back for all the reasons I've already explained. The customer's going to receive those. This is the old mechanical drive. We're trashing that. And then this is the old solid state drive. That'll go into a future veteran giveaway. And then the customer will receive their 2 SATA cables back because they might want to add a larger drive in the future, maybe a large mechanical drive or whatever. And they belong to the customer, and the customer should receive them. Robert Rakovic has contributed $5, and Daniel Sprouse also contributed $5. Thanks to both of you. We'll add a couple new moderators here. I'd love to see everybody turn blue. I would love everybody in my chat room to be blue. I can't log in here. Okay, so that's something else. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. 529 people are watching. Welcome in, everybody, as we continue our social distancing. What better time than now to hang out virtually and do a little computer work together. So this is the AMD AM4 backplate. Like I said, it's not the end of the world if you threw yours away. It just delays how soon you can get your job done. They're fairly inexpensive and pretty easy to find due to the popularity of the AM4 chip. The advantage, of course, is AMD's been keeping that socket size around for a long time, so it makes spare parts like this super easy to find. Ed Miraora has contributed $20, says, hope Uncle Carey, it says, hey, Uncle Carey, will you please split this with Catherine? Oh, thank you. Of course, yes. I haven't talked to Catherine in a while, but Catherine, for those of you who don't know, Catherine will put together a parts list for you. She does it for free. Just be nice to her, you know, don't boss her around and don't demand you get a response right away, although usually she's pretty quick about it, but she's got a life. And, you know, she'll ask you the appropriate questions. She doesn't just give everybody the same parts list. She customizes it to your needs, your budget, your expectations, and nothing but compliments. Nothing but compliments from people that have followed her build advice and emailed me from their computers wanting me to know, Catherine helped me build this computer and it's working great and I'm emailing you from it, and et cetera, et cetera. So thanks, you guys. And this is all part of the amazing community we have here. There's only one person in this community that I even recommend allow you to build a parts list, and that is Catherine. So that speaks for itself. So with this AM4 bracket that I ordered from Newegg for, I think, $7, we're going to take the, I don't even know what you call it. This is bracketing part with the screws. That just comes off. And we won't use the screws or these yellow parts. We just need the back plate itself. Everything else will be provided by Mugen with the cooler. They just didn't provide this part. They assumed, as they rightly should, that you would already have this. Whoops. The benefit of using a backplate you already have reduces the overall cost of the cooler. Also makes the installation a lot easier since you're not having to replace anything, or you're replacing fewer things with regards to not having to replace the backplate. So stuff like this, again, I would give the customer these parts just so they have them if they ever wanted to go back to a traditional AMD cooler for some reason. And the back plate is simply going to go on into the back, just like this. There's no right side up, doesn't matter which way you put it on. No side of it says top or anything like that. And then in the bag, that this has all our spare parts, all the parts rather that came with the cooler. We're going to pull out the parts we need for AMD. So we're going to need these two brackets that kind of look like parentheses. They're bent like that. These are for use on AMD systems. These straight ones, these are used for Intel systems, so we won't use those at all. We need two of these brackets to hold the fan, and they include two extras if you want to add another fan on the other side, which we're not going to do. Oh, how did that go? Klutzy today. The back plate here is for Intel only, so that can go in the bag. And it's been a while since I've done AMD. We can take a quick look at the instructions on the Mugen 5, and you can see how many different socket types the Mugen 5 is compatible with. For example, it's compatible with the Intel LGA 2011 and 2066, as well as the LGA 775, 1150, 1151, 1155, 1156, and 1366. And on the AMD side, you got AM2, AM2 Plus, AM3, AM3 Plus, AM4, FM1, FM2, and FM2 Plus. A lot of different socket types are covered here. Basically, every modern socket you can buy today except Threadripper is supported. And if I look here on the AMD instructions, they've got us taking the little bracket off of here. This one shows it as one piece. Obviously, on this one, it's two pieces. And they've got us putting a little standoff on the top and then putting the long screws in there. So what that's referring to is we're not using any of these standoffs. These are all used on Intel boards. What we are going to use is in this bag, you'll see there are some black, well, they're calling them standoffs, but they're black spacers. And then these long screws. And those are going to hold that back plate in that fell out here. So let me just take that out real quick. And then what else is in this bag are rubberized pads that go on an additional fan to help reduce any noise caused by vibration. So the rubber pads stick to the fan, and then the rubber pads go against the side of the heatsink so you don't have plastic against the metal to vibrate and make noise. That's what that's for. Because we're not adding any extra fan, we'll just keep that little, there's four little, they're all die cut, but there's four of them, one for each corner of the fan. And so what I have to do, and this will be a little tricky because it requires more hands than I have, really, is I got to hold this in place. We'll line it up, hold it in place, and then put this washer on and secure that. And I can just start turning it by hand. And I want to just do the opposite corner, and that should hold that back plate in for the other two screws without me having to need three arms, three hands. And with those two started, I've got the electric driver here on a torque setting of 3. No, I'm screwing this up. There's a, I got to put the bracket on. So I can't just put that in like that. I wasn't thinking. I've got to put these brackets on between the top of that spacer and the screw. It's going to hold this bracket in place. So, but that's okay. I'll use the one screw I've got in there to help hold it in position. And unlike the Intel, you cannot put the bracket on So with Intels, you could put the bracket on this way or this way, but it's only going to work if you put the bracket on the right orientation. On AMD, it's only going to fit in one direction because it's rectangular instead of square, and you want the outside of the bracket away from the socket on both sides. So it'll just kind of look like it's surrounded by a giant metal parentheses. Best way I could explain that. And then there's two holes, and I'm not quite sure if we're using the inner side of the hole or the outer side. We're going to find out here in a minute, though. It's been a little while since I've done this, and I just can't remember. I think we're using the inner one. I could be wrong. And this requires, again, you got to hold the back plate in. There's not a whole lot of screw sticking out from the other side, so it's not going to bite into that too much. If it'll focus on that, you can see it. It's just enough. Just want to double check my documentation, make sure I'm doing this right. Yeah. Working a lot with Intel Socket 1151, I can do a lot of this stuff blindfolded. I don't build as many AMD systems because people don't order as many AMD systems. There's a lot of people that like to be conspiracy theorists and think I have something against AMD. Both AMD and Intel have their pros and their cons. Neither one of them is a perfect solution for everyone. Everybody's got their own budgets, their own desires, their own expectations. And I build what my customers order. So if you want to see something specific, order it. That's my solution to that problem. People say, well, he doesn't build any AMD systems. Well, order one. You'll see me build one. That's how it works here. I think people are so brainwashed by the enthusiast channels that get sponsorships and get paid product placements that they think that that's some sort of way of showing loyalty to a brand when all it is cashing a check from that brand. They don't quite understand why certain channels focus on certain products, that there's a financial incentive back into that that isn't necessarily honest. It's business. And people who don't recognize that don't realize that what they're basing their information on isn't coming from isn't coming from a place of what's best for individuals. It's what's best for the content creator in how they're going to get paid. I do some stuff here on the channel that I know will more than likely get me more views. I'll go to that extent, but when it comes to, hey, if we pay you some money, will you promote our product? If it's not a product I personally use and recommend, then I don't take those deals. So those deals have really never happened. The closest thing that's happened is I've had, Silverstone has reached out to me with some product, Fantex, and there's a couple other case makers. Be Quiet has reached out, and they'll say, we'll contribute the product. You don't have to send it back, but they don't pay me any money. And you've seen me use those in builds, and I end up giving those to the customers whose builds I'm doing. I don't keep them. And while I'm using them, I'm able to then review and give you my take on whether or not I like the product, and then further, because it's going to a real customer, I have an ongoing situation where as long as that customer owns that computer, they're using that product. And if that product ever creates a problem for them, I'm going to hear about it, and I'm going to report it back to you. So the reviews here are far more thorough than anything you see on those enthusiast channels. And again, not insulting the enthusiast channels, but just trying to help you recognize the difference in motivation behind what the enthusiast channels do and what I'm trying to do here, in the hopes that you'll, whether or not you see any value in it, I can't control, but in the hopes that you'll at least recognize the reasons behind why enthusiast channels do the videos they do and why I do the videos I do. Mine are based solely on what customers order. That's it. So a customer doesn't order something, you're not going to see it here. Enthusiast channels, many of them have established relationships with certain manufacturers, and you'll find certain brands will appear over and over and over again. You might find a lot of a specific brand. On Newegg's videos, you'll see the same brands over and over. They are paying to play. It doesn't work here. So, just so you know, that's just, I don't know why that's considered to be a secret. It shouldn't be. You should be fully aware of the motivations behind the content creators. My motivation is to educate first and profit second. And I don't do any search engine optimization. All of my subscribers have been, this whole video channel has been created organically, meaning I've done nothing to promote it. I've done nothing to do what everybody else does. Find keywords that are current search terms to put in my titles to snag more views, pay PR companies to promote my videos. I've not done any of that. So I've been referred to, I was talking to a marketing guy and I explained all this to him and he's like, you built an audience that big purely organically? I said, well, yeah, how else would you do it? He goes, nobody does that. He says, you're a unicorn. He says, when are you going to do what everybody else is doing? And I said, I'm happy. I got a great community. We're growing steadily. What needs to be fixed? What's broken? Everything's great. You could grow faster. Yeah, I suppose. But I suppose not everybody sees the value in that. To me, it's important. Everything's real. This last one's a little tricky to get on. All right, so that's what the bracket looks like when it's installed correctly. Let's see if I can get you a little close-up on that. Let's see which way I got to go. Like this. So that's what the Mugen 5 bracket looks like when it's installed correctly. Now I'll get some denatured alcohol. You want, rubbing alcohol of the highest alcohol content. You can get like 91% alcohol. Whatever the highest percentage you can get is. If it's 80 some odd percent, if that's all you got, then that's fine. And we're going to clean, because this had thermal compound, and I've not cleaned it. All I did is use a paper towel, and it got it that clean with just a paper towel. But before I apply any new thermal compound, we want to make sure, like I can touch this right now. You normally don't want to touch this. But I'm going to clean this anyway, because the oils from your skin get on this, and it doesn't make a huge difference in your cooling, but it does make a difference. And if you want the best cooling possible, you need the mating surfaces of the top of the CPU and the bottom of the heatsink to be completely free of any debris or oils or dust, etc. And that's just a general rule. In real life, how much difference does it make? Maybe a couple degrees. Maybe. See, I got one in the, oh, yep, you're right. Somebody in the chat, who was that? Kenton Morton. Why is Kenton not a moderator here? Kenton's caught something here. It's not a major thing, but I'm a big believer in let's do it right or not do it at all. And what he's pointed out is, I keep losing my video feed. Bear with me for a second here, since I have to be my own camera guy. What he's pointing out is if you look at where this screw is, notice it's on the inside hole, inside hole, inside hole. That one is not. And you are correct. And what's happened is this is a little bit crooked, and that can affect how well the heatsink is going to sit. Thank you for pointing that out. We're going to correct that right now. If I can hold my hand steady. There it is. So the screwdriver has a clutch setting on it, and you'll see these numbers around the edge. And with the arrow, I've got it set on the clutch setting of 3. And what that means is when this driver hits a certain resistance, it shuts off. So all the screws are tightened to the exact same amount of torque. It's not critical. It's just something I like to do to ensure consistency in all of my builds. And I do a lot of builds, and I don't want carpal tunnel syndrome. And so using the electric driver helps me. If you're a novice, if you're just beginning, do not use an electric driver to tighten screws. You can use one to remove them. But when you tighten them, if you don't have the screw lined up exactly, you can strip out the threads, and then you're not going to have a good time. A lot of comments, people say, it looks better now, I can sleep. Randall Hill says that was bothering my OCD. Once it was pointed out, Randall, it was bothering mine too, if that wasn't clear. And a couple other contributions have come in here, and let's give a few shouts out here. We've got, go backwards. Ian Costello has contributed £5. He says, thanks for sharing your knowledge, mate. Thank you, Ian. Welcome to being a moderator. Madi, good friend of the channel, whose name I failed to mention earlier, Madi UL, has contributed $10. He says, TR base 700, be quiet, thanks. I'm sure there's a point of reference there I don't get, but Madi and I will talk later. Christoph Esch, watching us from Germany, has contributed €5. He says, thanks to Catherine Anna Hauserman, you did a great job with the parts list. Hope to see you soon. Very cool. And again, Christoph has contributed €10 and says, hello from Germany. I hope you are all well, and don't let this used PC thing get to you. It's still a great idea. Help is not always welcomed as it should. I can see cookies for the dogs. Yeah, I'm sure they would like that. Thank you, Christoph. And then, were there any I missed prior to that? Just take a quick look. Marx Brothers 715 has contributed $14.99. It says, hey, Carey, you've always been great. Personality and awesome videos always. Thank you, Marx Brothers. I appreciate that very much. And cheers and thanks to all of you for, again, helping support the channel. 13 Grands Tech Guy has contributed $20. Hey, thank you very much. Again, these are wonderful contributions today. Appreciate it. All right, so with the brackets installed, I can get my, I use denatured alcohol. I've got a bottle of that I've had for years. We used to use this stuff to clean tape deck heads and VHS player heads. It's still the same process. That we're gonna use that to clean the top of the CPU. I'm gonna grab that. Samuel Ramos just contributed $10. Thank you, Samuel, for your continued contributions to the channel. Excuse me a minute while I run back here and grab my, let's see, I guess I need a rubber glove. Well, technically, it's a nitrile glove. Rubber and latex don't play well with electronics. And while you could probably use one and get away with it, you shouldn't. All right. And Q-tips. I'll just set the drivers aside here for a moment. Let's zoom in here. You can watch what I'm doing. A nice close-up. So I've got this thing of Q-tips here. And this is what I've been using for years and years and years. And you can see it's 190 proof. It's almost all 100% alcohol. Oh, Marty contributed $5. He goes, he was referring to the Be Quiet Pure Base 700. That was something that the folks at Be Quiet sent me for review, and I gave that to Marty in Marty's build. He's living with it every day, and he loves it. So that's what you call a real review, folks. That's somebody dealing with that product every single day. They count on that. And if there's something about it, if it's got a idiosyncrasy or it's got some weirdness, something that's just a little bizarre, something that might have been sort of an annoyance at first may quickly become, sooner or later, maybe not quickly, a royal pain in the butt where you can't wait to get rid of it. And in this case, Marty's loving it more now than it seems than when he first got it. So that happens too. All I'm doing here is just trying to take off any contaminants across the edges and across the top of what this is referred to. This piece here is referred to as an internal heat spreader, or IHS. And it's a metal cap, that's all it is. And the components underneath this get very, very hot. And this helps dissipate that heat. I don't need to dry this off. You'll see the alcohol evaporating. So as long as we just let it sit for a minute, and you can continue to do that, you can see how much of the Q-tip is dark. And you can continue if you want to until the Q-tip comes out clean. It doesn't have to be that clean. But if you want to, you can. You're not going to hurt it. Give it a moment for the alcohol to completely evaporate before we apply any thermal compound. I'm going to just put the Q-tips and rubbing alcohol off the counter here so they don't get in my way primarily, and we'll back this back up here. Let's go back. There we go. Alfred Roberts has contributed $20. Hey, Alfred, thank you very much, and welcome to being a moderator, my friend. I did talk to to Rick Miller over at Kids at Hope, because I've got that machine right back there is for them, and that was a combination of Michael Brooks and Ryan Grady had sent some parts in. And Colin Hilton also contributed, so I can buy some more 200R cases. And I talked to Rick Miller. I said, look, I've got computer number 1 ready, and I think I have parts for computers number 2 and 3. And I think the final 2, number 4 and number 5, I might build brand new. So I said, you know, what's the status there? He said, they're completely closed down right now. And well, he could accept the computers if I ship them. He has no place to use them right now. So there's no rush to get these done for them at this time. So I'll still get the one finished that I started, which again is that machine right back there. And I'll just put it in a box and set it aside. I'll get the other 2 done, make videos on those using lightly used components that aren't too old. And I just told him, I said, you know, the first 3 computers give to the people who aren't critical in the business, because the final 2 I think will be new, like a Ryzen 5 or something like that. And so for the people that, there's a couple of employees that are critical, make sure that those employees perhaps get those brand new ones, and then employees further down the chain that are there part-time or aren't as critical, give them these machines, which are far better than what they've got. I mean, nobody should be complaining that somebody's got a better computer. And that was my advice for him, and he's very appreciative. And I said, what do you want to do with your current machines? Do you have a charity you want to donate them to, or would you like me to securely erase them and use them as future giveaways for disabled American veterans? And he said he loves the idea of giving their current machines to me to recycle back to disabled American veterans. So all of that will be happening. I expect we'll be giving him 5 and receiving 5. Those 5 will need to be reset, and we'll have 5 more to give away on top of the 20 we've already got, plus the 32 we've already given away. So I'm very proud to be a part of that, and I'm very happy to help Rick Miller and the folks at Kids at Hope that they do a very important job with regards to helping kids, school-age kids, with regards to bullying and difficult life situations. So I think it's important work. It's something I can relate to very deeply. And what I see in the news today, we went a full month without any school shootings for the first time in years, but nobody's in school, so it was kind of a weird news story, right? But I think a lot of the reason why these school shootings happen, not always, has to do with bullying. And if we can resolve one thing, we resolve those potential consequences, or a portion of them anyway. So again, I just thought that was interesting that they published that story today in the news, and it's like, well, duh. In the meantime, a couple other contributions have come in here. Let me give some thank yous out here to Michael in Maryland, contributed $5. He says, my calendar says it's tax day today, but we all know now that that's in July. Yes, that's correct. Here in the United States, our tax collection day is traditionally April 15th. You have by midnight of April 15th to file your tax return for the prior year. That's been extended due to circumstances to July 15th. It's never happened in my life. There it is. So this has had plenty of time now to evaporate. The where are we? There we are. And I've got the tube of thermal compound that comes with the scythe cooler. They give you more than you need here. And we're just going to put a dab of that. Oh, we'll put it right about there like that. That's maybe even a little too much. We'll find out here in a minute. Then I've got my glove. So I will put my glove on. And then we're going to just finger paint the thermal compound. We want a nice thick coat, not too thick, not too thin. We certainly don't want to read the words behind it. If you can read the words rising, you don't have enough on there. If it's dripping off the sides, you have too much. So I've got plenty on my finger, and I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to use a clean finger, and I'm going to just dab it a bit and create little hills and valleys, and that helps to prevent any sort of air bubbles. Not that that actually matters to anybody in reality, except for extreme overclockers that use custom liquid nitrogen and fry their CPUs, momentarily hitting Guinness records for moments for bragging rights and spending thousands of dollars to do it. But for normal people, that is more than adequate. For regular, normal users, I should say. And you'll see that this stuff, I've got it on two of the fingers there, and it's messy. When it gets on stuff, it's hard to take it off. So what I'll do is just turn the glove inside out, and it helps keep my fingers clean. If you get it on your fingers, you'll quickly find washing your hands under the sink, it stays on your fingers for a couple days. Metal Bird Blogger has contributed $5. Says, what is your opinion about Fry's Electronics? You think they're all going out of business in the future? I used to shop there a lot myself. We have a Fry's Electronics store not too far from here. I was driving by it it was Saturday. There were 4 cars in the parking lot. 4 cars. Saturday, 7 o'clock at night. I think they were still open. I have stopped shopping for electronics at retail stores, whether it's Best Buy or was Circuit City. I find the selection to be disappointing. I find looking for help, find somebody to get some help, can be challenging, and oftentimes the people you talk to aren't that knowledgeable and might advise me against purchasing what I'm there to purchase. And I'm like, I didn't ask you. I didn't ask you for your advice on the router. I just, want to know if you have one in the back. I'd like to buy one. And I don't like the harassment. It feels like harassment. Like I know they're trying to help me, but they don't know who I am. So I don't need their advice. I didn't ask. That being said, I would much rather go to Amazon or Newegg and get or even B&H Photo, and you have this huge inventory to choose from. I don't have to come out to my car and find somebody door dinged my car because they swung their car door into mine. I don't have to deal with anybody backing into me in the parking lot, which has happened. I don't have to deal with waiting in line at the checkout. I don't have to deal with having them check my receipt at the door, which I find offensive. So I just go online. I order from Amazon, I order from Newegg, I order from B&H Photo, maybe even sometimes eBay. It depends what the product is I'm looking for. And I let the product come to me in a couple days. No big deal. It shows right up at my door. I don't have to spend the gas, take the challenge of getting into a car accident, finding a parking spot, waiting in line, looking on the shelf for the product. Product's not there. Find somebody to help me, see if they got it in the back. So whether or not Fry stays in business or doesn't makes no impact on my life whatsoever. In fact, this whole sort of shelter-in-place thing has been my life for 40 years. I've more or less been doing that. If I can avoid going out, especially to someplace busy, like, you think I'm going to Costco anytime soon? Like, it was bad enough on a normal day. There's nothing I need at Costco that bad. And Costco does home deliveries. And if you need something desperately and it's available, they'll bring it to you. At this time right now, I'm having as much brought to me as possible, but I was already doing that before all of this. And much the same way with Fry's Electronics, I haven't shopped there in years. I've walked, I'll be honest, I've walked in there and I've looked around just to see. And the last time I was there, most of the shelves were bare. And I was like the only customer in the whole store that I could see. Whether or not they stay in business or they don't has no impact on me whatsoever. Changes nothing. So I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what their situation is financially or their relationship with their vendors. What's going on with that? Don't know. I think that they should go online only. That's what I think. Wilhelm Gordon has contributed $19.99. Hey, thank you, Wilhelm. And he says, keep the shoes coming. They're addictive. I know what you mean. Thank you. It's a wonderful shoe. Welcome to the shoe. Did I miss another one? Gabriel says, I can't see subtitles. Can you enable and disable them again? No, I cannot, Gabriel. That's all controlled by YouTube's servers. I would have to physically stop the stream and recreate another stream. And I can assure you, every time I start a stream, all the settings are the same. Nothing gets enabled or disabled. Everything is put back or remains the same. Only YouTube is the one changing it. And I'm sorry, I have no control over that. There's nothing I can do on my end to fix it. I apologize for that. I think YouTube is being hammered. I think that their employees are severely lacking in skill set. I think their management has no clue what they're doing behind trying to make money, and nothing else matters to them. And the technical skills that they have exhibited at YouTube have left me profoundly disappointed that this company is as big as it is, and yet continues to operate like some one-person guy working out of his kitchen. And that's an insult. So, yeah, you can write a letter to YouTube, but YouTube doesn't answer emails. I'm sorry. It's nothing I can do about it. See, my friend Ron Helier is joining us, and as I hear, Mitch Morrison is in the chat room. Another friend, Mitch Hammond, Hammond joins. I haven't seen Mitch in a while. Where's Mitchell? You in there, Mitchell? Morrison? Where you at? Speak up. Love to give Mitch a hard time. Both of them. Zero Course says, I didn't even mention YouTube's absolutely terrible algorithm. Yeah, don't get me started. YouTube is a love-hate relationship. The minute somebody comes along as a competitor to YouTube, I'll be on board with them. It can't be much worse. Can't be much worse. But in the meantime, YouTube has no competition, no real competition, so here I am. There's Mitchell. There he is. Okay, so with the thermal compound applied, we can now install the heatsink. Now, I'm going to lay the case flat to do this because I want to work with gravity. I do a lot of work that I should not be doing with the case upright, and that's so you guys can watch. When you guys are repeating what you see me do, I would encourage you to lay the case flat when you're working like anything installing cards into the motherboard, anything that involves any downward force. Work with gravity is what I'm saying. Don't just do it the way you see me do it, keeping in mind I'm doing this so you can see. On the bottom of the heatsink, there's a protective tape, and that's again to keep this surface area free of contaminants. You don't want to remove this tape until you're ready to install. Many people forget to remove the tape, and then they wonder why their CPU temperature is not as good as what you see on my videos. Now there's a side of this where the screw sticks out, and there's a side where the screw comes through sort of the center. Where the screw sticks out, that's going to go towards the RAM, and we're just going to set that right over the CPU. We don't put any thermal compound on the heatsink. We only put the thermal compound on the CPU. Side has included this wonderful screwdriver that's going to fit straight down through that center hole at the top of the CPU so we can get to the screw underneath of it. And we'll just get that started and then come to the other screw, which is super easy to access, and we'll get that one started. And we're going to just try and tighten these evenly. We don't want to tighten one screw too much more than the other. Can't tell if I'm... Yeah, there it goes. So that one I actually tightened all the way down. I backed it off a little bit so I can tighten this one all the way down. Then I'll come back and tighten this one down. And I just want to prevent any sort of warping. You can't see if you've warped it. You'll only be able to know if your cooling isn't as good as it should be. Now, one of the downsides that I'm just realizing of doing this is there's a fan up here at the top. Let's talk about this for a minute. Let's bring this back up. There's a cooling fan right here. I don't recommend that you have a cooling fan on the top and on the back, one or the other. As a result of this fan being up here, it's going to be very difficult. I guess we'll be okay. The screws are on the outside. To change this fan out. What I was about to say is if you had to come at the screws from underneath, this heat sink's in the way now. What I want to do, since you really want your airflow all moving in one direction, we don't want it going in two directions. We'll take this fan out and we're going to move it to the front so we can blow air over this graphics card. Again, we want all the air moving in, up, and out. That's the design. Now, if we don't have a fan here and we have one here, that's fine. And if we have one here, you want one or the other, and my suggestion is to keep the airflow straight. Don't have it change direction and coming in this way and then going up. That's weird. It's not efficient. It doesn't go with nature. So you want to work with nature. You want to go with the current of the river, right? Let it help propel you. Don't fight against it. So we're going to take this fan out, we're going to move it up front, and we're just going to encourage airflow all moving in this direction. So they've got the fan cable management running out behind and down here on the bottom. Ironically, I'm probably going to plug it into that same connector down on the bottom, but I want the fan to be perhaps, we'll take this cover off of here. It should, I think, just pop straight off, doesn't it? I can't remember. It's been a while. I think. Does this one not come off? Yeah, this looks like one piece of metal that's bent down. So I think what we have to do is come in from this side. It's got an opening here. You would think they might have a filter. How would you clean that filter if this piece doesn't come off? Oh, interesting. And you can see this fan's pretty dusty for a machine that hasn't been used much. And we want to make sure that, excuse me, this side of the fan is the side that's sucking air in. And this side with the brackets is the side the air is blowing out. So we want to bring the air in from the front and push it through the case. So to do that, we want to make sure we have the cable management. We want the cable coming out this side like this. And then we can put this either in this position or in this position. There's a space here, room here for 2 fans. And we can just reach in. It's a little tricky to do this. We'll reach in here, sort of hold the fan where I need it. We want the cable management that way. Yeah, and then if we put it here, it'll blow air over the video card. And if we put it up higher, it'll equally blow air over the video card. I don't think either position is bad. This feels a little more shy. I wish there was a middle, right? I wish I could put it right there. But it's not going to let me. So what I'll do is I'll just set this down for a minute. Very difficult to work on. Oh, I see what I'm supposed to do. I see. There's a couple of thumb screws here I just noticed. There's probably people shouting at me in the chat room right now. If we take this thumb screw out here, again, I'm unfamiliar with the case, so bear with me. Always working on different cases, different computers. I rarely see the same computer twice, so I sort of follow the rules of logic, which certainly apply here. This makes more sense now than the way I was doing it. Not that the way I did it was wrong, but why work harder than you have to, right? So if we take these 2 screws out right here, then this piece comes out, and now it'll be a lot easier to mount this fan. And we can put that right like so. Working smarter, not working harder, right? Isn't that what they say? Somebody says it. You should listen to them. That one won't tighten down. So I've decided to keep the NZXT logo straight up and down by having the fan come out the top. I had it rotated another 90 degrees so that it was so the cable was coming out of the bottom corner, but then the logo was sideways. OCD. It doesn't affect how the fan operates, but I just want to clarify, I sort of changed my mind when I took this out and how I was initially planning to install this. There's little hooks or bent tabs up here that go into alignment holes so that this goes into the proper position. And then it'll automatically align the mounting holes with these thumb screws, which don't have to be as tight as they were. Now to me, this makes more sense of a configuration. So now we've got the air coming in from the front. It'll blow over this area. We're going to have a fan here, obviously, and then this fan here, and all the air is moving in the same direction. It's far more efficient. Makes more sense. And then we can plug that fan right back into the same header it was in, which is right over here. Cable management on this case is fantastic, by the way. And it's really dark. I don't need a flashlight to be able to see down in there. There's 4-pin fan headers on the motherboard, but it's a 3-pin fan. So I got to figure out where the tongue and groove are that'll line up those 3 pins on the 4-pin connector. I can see it now. And then I'll just pull the slack cable through here for later cleanup. So it looks nice and clean in there. I probably should leave that out. I don't think I need these directions anymore, so we'll put these back. The extra thermal compound will also go back to the customer in case they want to make any changes. Oh, and then there's the foam pads for the extra fan. That'll go in there as well. Okay. You see the cooler's crooked. I don't know, is it? No, it's just the camera angle. Cooler isn't budging. Cooler's, I don't think it's possible for the cooler to be crooked. That's possible on a Hyper 212, but this one locks straight down. So depending on the angle you're looking at it, remember, like, I'll give you an example. When I pull this camera back a little bit, and if you look at the top edge of the counter, once I show this to you, you're never going to be able to unsee this. When I'm zooming in, what I'm looking for, do you see how this side of the counter is, you can't see it, but this side of the counter you can see. So it looks like it's tilted. It's not tilted. The camera is turned. And the camera, if it's not straight on, has the effect of looking tilted. So what I have to do is just simply turn the camera, and you'll start to see a level here. Even now, this side is up higher than this side. So it's just a little tiny bit of rotating the camera until you can get it pretty well dead on. But when I get it straight on, now this corner over here is completely cut out. You can't see the entire island I'm working on. So, but then I can back it off a little bit. And so that may have the appearance of leaning, kind of looks like it's leaning that way. But looking straight at it, it's physically straight. And even if it was slightly crooked, it wouldn't affect its cooling properties. And if you have a case window, as this case does, obviously that would be something that might bother you to look at it crooked. In this case, the only way that this could be, just to clarify this for people that are curious, the only way we could make this crooked, if I had left that screw in the wrong position on the bracket, that would result in it being crooked. But the side, it doesn't move. It's locked in. And with all the proper mounting holes used, you have no choice but to be straight. So it's just an optical illusion if it appears to be crooked. If we measure the space between here and here, and here and here, it's exactly the same. All right. Optics. It's all optics. Let me take a look and see what I've been missing in the chat room while I've been working here. Josie wants to know if you can put in too much RAM. Some motherboards allow for a certain maximum capacity of RAM, depending on the age of your system, whether or not it's a laptop has an effect on that as well, and simply won't accept it. Other times you can use, you can buy a car with 800 horsepower. You can buy a Dodge Hellcat and never ever race it and never drive it fast. In the same way, you can have 128 gigs of RAM in a modern computer and never use more than 16 gigs. You'll never know in most cases. People that need more RAM don't ask that question. In other words, there's a certain, the people who benefit from having extreme amounts of RAM are of a certain technical level where they don't need to ask that question. So if you have to ask that question, you don't need it. That's the bottom line. But if you buy more RAM than you need, it's just sitting there doing nothing. Well, in the meantime, you don't get the money back. So you reach a point of diminishing returns. And those who use more than 16 gigs of RAM, there's sort of levels, right? There's the 16 gigs would be what I consider a normal user. 32 gigs would be a power user. And anything above 32 gigs would be user specific. And those fall into two categories, those who need it and those who want it. There are plenty of people that want it who don't need it. And the people who need it and the people who want it don't ask. They get it because they feel they need to have it, or they know they need to have it, or they know they want it. So more or less, if you put more RAM in than your system will recognize, your system, let's say you've got a system that only recognizes 32 gigs of RAM on a laptop and you put 64, it'll just see 32. So you wasted your money. And let's say you put in 32, but you're really only using no more than 20. Well, you're not really fully going to utilize or benefit from the 32. Maybe someday in the future you will. But it won't cause any harm other than to your bank account. Thank you for the question. Avery says, I've got 16 gigs and the most I've ever used to the best of my knowledge is 11 gigs. Although I want more because of the cool RGB lights. Yeah, that makes sense. Eric Nelson says 16 gigs works great for him and he's doing day trading. Sure. Vern Mahoney says parallax, I think is the term. So what parallax is, in the days of using a viewfinder, so let's say you had a still camera, and the lens for the camera was here and the viewfinder was here, and you line up your shot in the viewfinder and then the lens here takes the picture, oftentimes the picture is shifted to the left or to the right because the viewfinder is not going through the lens, the viewfinder is beside the lens. These are on a lot of the point and shoot cameras in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. So then you wanted a single lens reflex camera. So an SLR, those cameras with the big lenses, the big 35 millimeter film cameras, where the lens and the viewfinder were lined up through a mirror. And you would look through the lens and reflect from the mirror, it was an angled mirror, looking out through the lens, and as you would focus and as you would zoom, you were seeing through the viewfinder what the lens was seeing, removing any parallax errors. And then the sound, the shutter sound, the ch-ch is the sound of the lens moving and blocking directing all the light to the film. It exposes the film behind it and allows the light from the lens for a certain period of time, depending on your aperture and your f-stop, to then expose that negative film to light for a certain period of time and burn the image, if you will, onto the nitrate or whatever that is on the film. Then we had digital SLRs, where we emulated that digitally, and now we're going with mirrorless SLRs, which is fully digital. There's no more mirror, and then the mechanical click-click sound of the mirror moving is being emulated through audio. You know, they do that with some electric cars. They'll emulate the sound of an engine to make you feel a little better. Human beings are funny that way. But it seems the mirrorless cameras are doing a better job than traditional mirrored cameras. And that parallax error, just to be clear, was that what you put in the viewfinder wasn't exactly lined up top to bottom or left to right on what the lens was actually seeing. So with a point and shoot camera, you don't see the focus. You know, you're just looking through a fixed lens. And then you press the button, and then usually a light would go green to tell you that it's focused, or you hear a beep, deet, it means it's focused, and then you push the button all the way down and you get your picture. That's traditionally how a point and shoot camera works. So if you had a point and shoot camera that had a big zoom lens on it, the more you zoomed in, knowing that the viewfinder's never changing. So the more you zoom in, the more obvious the parallax error becomes. You might take a picture of a sign, and you might frame the sign perfectly. Then you go get your film developed and realize a third of the sign is missing. Because what the lens saw versus what the viewfinder saw, the more you zoomed it in became more extreme. And there you go. There's your lesson on parallax, which doesn't really occur much today. Not Nobody uses point and shoot cameras anymore. We're shooting with our cell phones, which are giving us a live shot in a similar way of the mirrorless cameras today. You can see it focus, you can see it zoom, and everything you see on your screen is exactly what's recorded. Point and shoots, like the little digital cameras, it's been a long time since I've seen anybody use those anymore. So parallax should be a thing of the past, except for photo aficionados, in which case they're already experts on that and know how to compensate for it. Ron Hillier says, it's like using one eye at a time and switching back and forth. That's a great example, Ron. If you have the ability of closing one eye and focus on something, so right now my hand is in the middle of the camera lens, I'll close my other eye, now my hand is down and to the right. So if I move my hand back to being straight on, then I go back to the other eye, now my hand is to the left. So it's with both combined, and your brain fixes that parallax. But yes, that's a great example. Put your hand in front of you, focus on something in the distance, and then if you have the ability to close, to wink each eye, watch how it appears that your hand is moving when it's not moving. That's an awesome example, Ron. Thank you. Carey, are you using the new Ryzen to stream, or are you still using the little PC? Well, the little PC is also a Ryzen. It's a Ryzen 5. The computer, the streaming rig I'm using, is the machine you saw Mitch and I upgrade. That has the Ryzen 3950X CPU in it. 3950? No, it's a 3900. It has a 3900 in it. And I'm also using that for editing. I recently filmed an engine teardown with Subaru Mike, and I've been editing it now for 4 hours. And I've got the first 34 minutes of 3 hours are done. So it looks like I've got another 12 hours of editing to go. And editing is very tedious. So what I do is I find some time, I'll take an hour or two and I'll edit, and then I just save the project and walk away from it. And then I'll, just chip away at it. In 2 hours, I might get 10 minutes edited, 10 or 15 minutes. I have to cut out all the mistakes, or the phone rings, and I can't stop the cameras. There's 2 cameras filming from 2 angles, and it's important in order for them to stay synchronized that I don't have to start them both at the same time. But once I start one and then start the other one, I have to keep them running until the project's done. Otherwise, I run into audio synchronization problems that have to constantly be corrected in editing. It takes more and more time. So what ends up happening is we'll be filming, Mike will get a phone call, I just let the cameras run until he completes the call, and then when I encounter that part of the video, I have to crop that out, take it out, and then put some kind of a transition in and then play it back and make sure it's smooth. It's a tedious process. This video will probably be about 90 minutes long when it's done, and I'll be looking forward to having it completed. I do not like the editing process. And keep in mind that I was able to move around with one camera to get all the close-ups. I don't have to emulate pans and zooms like I have to do with my presentation videos. By having myself hold the camera, I can do a lot of the shots I need in editing already in the original footage, and now I just have to take out Mike's leaving to get a tool, can't find it, finds it, comes back, I have to crop that out. Or you'll be watching a 3-hour video, that could be trimmed down to an hour and a half. Furthermore, that hour and a half video can be even trimmed down further if we don't want to include all the detail. But I like to include every bolt, every screw, and every wire. So somebody following along with the same engine can go through the exact same process in the same order and know the size of the socket they need, and know how many screws come out. And then of course we'll film Mike putting the engine back together so that when somebody's in that position they can follow step by step with nothing assumed. As a result, it makes for a long video, and a long video takes a huge effort to edit it. It takes a lot of time, especially when you have 2 camera sources. So, and to make things more complicated, Mike is not microphoned. He has no microphone on him. So I'm using the audio from both cameras, and the audio has to constantly stay in sync. If I take one of the audio out of the equation, it simplifies the editing, but the audio doesn't sound anywhere near as full. So I decided to keep both audio sources, and every time I edit, I have to split and crop exactly the same on both sources. And sometimes, even then, it goes off by by a frame, and I have to just take that one frame out to get the audio to align again, or it has this weird tunneling effect, weird audio tunnel effect. So the edit has been excruciating, but I know when I'm done with it, it's going to be fantastic. I've got great shots. I think it's very educational. It's very helpful. I just don't like the process. But the 34 minutes I've got done are 34 minutes I don't have to do, and that gets me closer to being finished. Like I say, there's still probably nearly 2 hours of footage to go through. And every minute I do, every minute I process or edit is one less I have to do later. Sooner or later, I'll get to the end. So yeah, it's fun times. So the computer I'm using to edit all that on is the Ryzen system that you saw Mitch and I upgrade. And that's also the machine I'm streaming to you on right now. The little computer is over at the other location where I'm setting up another studio. I'm trying to, and it may be temporary. I might have it for 11 months. I might have it for 11 days, playing it day by day. In the meantime, I'm having parts ordered from Amazon regularly, new microphones, new tripods. I'm taking one of my existing cameras. I ordered a 6-button Stream Deck, new head. Everything's being duplicated that I have here over at the other location, with the investment being, if this other location gets pulled from me, I'm still going to eventually have to find another location. So one way or the other, I still need all the same equipment. And that way I can keep the equipment here and film here, and I can keep the equipment at another location and not have to worry about moving things back and forth and forgetting something, because that's terrible when you forget something and you had plans and now those plans are completely done. That's the place I'm going to be filming is a half an hour away each way. So if I forget batteries for the microphone, I mean, I suppose in that case I can run over to the store and buy a pack of batteries, but if I forget I'll give you an example. I was setting equipment up over there the other day and I could not get a video signal into that little streaming computer. And it was a brand new micro HDMI to HDMI cable. And it's a brand new camera. I said, well, I either got a bad camera or a bad cable. Nothing I can do to test it there. So I took it all back home. And that evening, I hooked that new camera up with the new cable, and sure enough, I got no signal. I grabbed another cable. Luckily, I have spares. Plugged it in. No, I didn't grab another. I used the existing cable I'm using right now because I knew that works. Plugged it into the camera, and it worked. So on the one hand, I was upset I have a brand new cable that was bad. On the other hand, I was happy it was an $11 cable versus a $2,500 camera. So then another trip over there with the camera and the new cable, test it again, and it works fine now. But what were the odds of that happening? So it's a very slow process to try and get everything set up. I'm gonna have an audio problem there. It's gonna be very echoey because it's a big empty room, and the sound is bouncing off the walls. It's pretty harsh. And I don't want to stick anything up on the walls. It's not my building to do what I want. Somebody's letting me use something. I'm thinking I might buy there's a carpet I can buy. It's about $300 and it's thick. And I think it'll dampen the sound, and the floors are tile. So at the very least, they'll be more comfortable to stand on. But before I make that $300 investment, if the upload speed is only 3 megabytes a second, I don't even know that I can stream from there. And we have to get that resolved. And then there could be other issues that happen, which I can't get into right now, but I'm working on it. That's why it's another project I'm working on. But I think you'll like it. And Marty's contributed $5. Thanks, Marty. Justin Havu's contributed $5. He says 16 gigs of RAM works fine for my needs. Music production, although 32 would be better for using sample libraries. Yeah, exactly. I agree. But that's not representative of the way most people use their computer. Sharon Idle wants to know if Linda is still liking Thready. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, indeed. She can't sing enough praise about Thready. So Freddie found love. Thready. Did I say Freddie? Thready found love. Do you still leaf blow the dust out of your PCs? Of course, why wouldn't I? It's environmentally friendly, it's faster, it's cheaper, and it's more effective than the canned chemical spray. So absolutely, yeah, I've been doing that for years. Ian says, I like the kitchen, it feels homey. Well, thanks, Ian. I'll still be filming here, but with my wife working from home, I cannot film while she's working because she's dealing with private HIPAA-related confidential information that could easily be picked up, overheard by my microphone and broadcast out in my streams. And furthermore, she's eating up a lot of the bandwidth with remote into her office with VoIP and the workstation. So I either have to start my streams later or I have to go somewhere else to do them. So for right now, I'm trying to do both. I'm starting my streams later, and I'm working in whatever free time I have over at the other location so I can broadcast from there. There I will have a green screen set up, and it will basically just hide the studio. You won't realize where I am. It'll just be a backdrop that a little more traditional as far as like YouTube videos go to a certain level with the backdrop. But I think it's important in this situation to keep where I'm at private and also to just do something different. Why not? Just do something different. People are talking a lot about blowing out the computer with a leaf blower. I've been doing that for a long time. It's been something I kind of stumbled into. And I can show you one here. Let's see, let's add a media source in OBS. And let's browse to my videos. Here it is. Can you film that right back there? Can you see that? In the front of it. And then we'll take the side panel off of here.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Juicy.
Wait, hold the camera straight. There you go. All right, now let me have you stand. If you can get the camera down low, and can you get me in the, can you see it? Putting you to work.
Yeah.
We ready?
Yeah.
Ready for this spectacular showing of 4th of July Dustworks?
Yep, let's do it.
Here we go.
Just happened to be downwind.
Wow, that was one of the worst I've ever seen. Glad we got that on camera, though. Did you see how, you're right, it was very juicy. Good word for it. Now look at, take some close-ups of that. Look, it almost looks like brand new in there now. Nice and slow. Like look where the fans are in particular. Where there was a lot of dust.
Like new.
All right, now we can work on it without getting Legionnaire's disease. And you just hit that red button again. Yeah, so that's one example. That's not the worst one I've ever had. I had another one here, if I can find it. Thought it would have been in that folder. Shouldn't have it. I had to find it. So I've got a number of these, and the reason I make these videos is to show you that it is safe to use a leaf blower. If you do it the way I do it, you repeat what you see, there's never been any damage. A lot of people will say there's damage. These are people that have never done it, because if they had done it, they'd realize there's no damage. Here's another one you might enjoy. This one was really bad. Let's try, here we go. So the bottom line here, and you'll see some older systems. I've been blowing out computers with leaf blowers for more than 10 years, I think now. Oh, it's definitely been more than 10 years because I was doing it at my old house. And I've been in this house for 11 years now. So I've been doing that for at least 12 years. There's never been a problem resulting from it. So, of course, how you choose to do it's up to you. I'm not in the leaf blower sales business. I don't care. Do whatever you want. But if you think there's something wrong with it, there's something wrong with you. That being said, one of the reasons I showed you that one computer that was really old is to give you an example of how long I've been doing this. I've got videos that are in standard definition of me doing this back at the old house. And it's never once caused a problem. It's very safe. But that being said, use an electric leaf blower. Don't use a gasoline-powered leaf blower. And don't do it on small form factor or laptops. You know, this is strictly for a computer you're not going to blow into your neighbor's yard. You don't want to knock it over. All right. It's good, though. And it's cheaper than canned air. It's better for the environment. It's cheaper. Running a business, you can imagine how much money I would spend and was spending on that canned chemical. We call it canned air, but it's not a can of air. It's a can of a chemical that if the liquid comes out of that can stain the paint and can cause freezer burn on your skin. So it's a serious chemical not to be played with. And it's not good for the environment, and it's expensive. It's not good for sustainability in a computer business. The electric leaf blower solves all these problems. So also, you know, when those cans of compressed air get cold, the pressure goes down. And you get barely any air coming out of them. And you never have that problem with an electric leaf blower. It's very consistent. Fans spinning do not generate electricity, and it doesn't harm the bearings in any way, shape, or form, despite what these morons on the internet will tell you. They're just basically telling you they're a moron and they don't understand how fans are made. So when you see somebody say that, know what they're really saying is, I have no idea what I'm talking about, nor do I understand what a diode is, nor do I understand what a brushless fan means. And in that case, just know you're dealing with somebody who's ignorant and they want you to know they're ignorant. You don't have to listen to them. The difference between them and me is I actually demonstrate on camera. How can you deny what you're witnessing, right? Versus somebody can say whatever they want. Show me. Show me a fan being broken from a leaf blower. Never happened. Robert wants to know what you recommend for blowing dust out of a laptop. Depends on the laptop, but in that case, those cans of compressed air are probably the most ideal way to do that. A shop vac in reverse works. Yeah, that can work too, sure. You don't want to touch any component. You don't want to use a brush or a vacuum cleaner. You want to blow the dust off without making any contact with the components. You don't want any electrostatic discharge that can happen through plastics. Looking through to see what other questions we've got here in the chat. Solo wants to know why I use Windows 10 Pro in my builds instead of Windows 10 Home. I'm a what you call a system builder, an OEM system builder. And I can get things you can't get. I can buy things you can't buy because you would just buy one of them, and I'm buying, you know, I'm not big enough like Best Buy or Dell. I'm not buying thousands or hundreds of thousands of Windows licenses, but I'm buying them by the dozen. As a result, I can work with distributors who, so let's say you've got a big distributor like Tech Data, or let's say that they sell a minimum of 10,000 licenses, and if you're not going to buy 10,000 licenses, they don't want to deal with you. There are other people who will buy the 10,000, they'll buy that minimum, and then they'll say, I will sell to all the mom and pop shops. I'll sell a dozen here and a dozen there, and I'll mark them up a little bit since I'm going to get them cheaper than they can still buy them. And they create their own business catering to small businesses. And they'll buy the minimum quantity required by the big distributors, and then they will resell that, break it up into pieces. So my distributor doesn't offer Windows 10 Home. Furthermore, for what I'm paying for Windows 10 Pro, it's cheaper than what, nearly by half of what you would pay retail for Windows 10 Home. There's no real advantage for most home users to have Windows 10 Pro, but there's no disadvantage to having it either. So because it's the one license I can get and it's legal, I'm not buying it from a shady source. It's not gray market. It's not stolen. It's a legit Windows key from an authorized distributor. That protects my clients against potential issues with software piracy, which would then be a reflection on me and would theoretically put me in a legal liability situation if they were fined for that. The bigger the company and the more money the company makes, the more of a target they are for asset auditing. And if they're paying me to take care of that for them, then they're trusting me to maintain their business. Businesses, when they reach a certain size, they're not interested in saving $10. They're interested in investing in protecting themselves from potential liabilities, because the deeper their pockets go, the more of a target they become for litigation. The more of a target they become for auditing. So it's important versus a hobbyist. Like you at home can buy a license off eBay. Nobody's going to audit you. When you run a business, it's different. And the more successful your business gets, the more of a target you become. And as you continue to be more successful, you better make sure you dot all your I's and cross all your T's, because there are opportunists looking to take advantage and exploit some of the money you've got in your deep pockets. And so if you're using a piece of software for free and you're profiting from using that software, and the software manufacturer finds out about it, they want a percentage of the profits that you made using their software, wouldn't you? So you run into these kind of situations. You know, Geek Squad got in a lot of trouble several years ago using free software, and then they were charging customers for the work, but they weren't giving any of that to the software manufacturers, and it was a violation of the terms of service. And I think that was all settled out of court. Usually these companies settle things out of court. It's cheaper, they admit no wrongdoing, it's good for PR, it sweeps it under the rug. If you do that and you're like a sole provider and you're on helping people in your neighborhood, it's less likely to affect you, although you're not immune from it. There's nothing to take from you. You know what I mean? Like the cost of taking you to court and pursuing it results in probably a bankruptcy judgment against you. You know, you would have no choice, and they get nothing. Well, that doesn't financially make sense to sue people to get nothing back. The recording industry was suing people for downloading music. And you remember that? And people were going to jail. People were paying huge fines, and everybody just filed bankruptcy. They don't do that anymore. Did you ever wonder why that stopped? It's not sustainable. The only people making any money are the lawyers. So yeah, one of the things I try and convey here is two things as a business, as a sustainable business. Nearly in 30 years, 29 years in business, not too many computer repair businesses have been around as long as I have. And that's because you have to adapt and change, and you have to protect. If you cut corners, they will come back. They will come back to bite you if you continue to grow. If you stay the same size and you stay small and you never grow, you might just give up on your business because it's not going anywhere. But if you are growing, then it becomes more and more important for you to do all the right things so you don't become a target, so your clients don't become a target, and that you have all the verification necessary if you're challenged, so that solves a problem and avoids a problem. It's just thinking ahead. I think a lot of people don't know how to play chess. If you don't know how to play chess, learn how to play chess. It's a very valuable lesson in life of thinking ahead. Checkers is about thinking about right now. Chess is learning how to anticipate your enemy's moves or your opponent's moves, and it's about thinking of the next move after that and the next move after that. It's called strategizing. And when you strategize, you're not thinking just about today. You're not thinking about, I'm going to take this job because I need the money today. You think about how that's going to affect you next week, next month, next year. If you want to stay in business, in my experience, you have to see the big picture. You have to look at weeks down the road, months down the road. You're hungry today, but you're going to be hungry next month. So it's sort of like somebody who robs a bank. You might get away with a big chunk of change today, but what happens when you spend it? What do you do next? There's only so many times you're going to rob a bank before you're caught, and then you're just going to be sitting in jail for the rest of your life, potentially. It's not sustainable. I would rather make a small amount of money from a client regularly over a long period of time than make a large amount of money and then upset the client and never have their business again. That's basically my mission statement, is to provide a fair price for a complete and thorough service. And if the customer doesn't want complete and thorough service, I won't do the work because it's a reflection on me. So I have to maintain my reputation, and part of that is competitive pricing, fast service. Some people are laughing at fast service right now. There's computers back here, been waiting. But it's different when you're a business and your business goes down. Like that gets right to the top of the triage, priority list. So all things considered, I'm always thinking of tomorrow and next week. And so there'll be people on the internet that'll say, well, that's just ridiculous. You can just go and cut the corner here and you can do that. And for most home users, that's true. Yeah. It's not right. It's not morally or ethically right, but your morals and ethics aren't my problem. But as a business, if I want to stay in business, I better do everything right. And when it comes to Windows 10 Pro, those are the legal licenses that I can get, and they cost less than Windows 10 Home. In fact, they don't even offer Windows 10 Home. And I wouldn't want it anyway. For the price, it just doesn't make sense. And that's why I use Windows 10 Pro. The Feeder contributed $2. He says the USB thumb drive, is it any good or no time yet? So in my interview with Steve Bass, we talked about the thumb drive. If you go back and watch that video, the gist of it is there's a 256 gig flash drive that he sent me from Micro Center for $27.99. For you to copy 256 gigs of data to this USB 3 flash drive will take 8.5 hours. And to read it back, I think took an hour and a half. Now for $67.99, you can buy a 256 flash drive from SanDisk called the Extreme Pro, and it will write all 256 gigs of data in 30 minutes and read it back in like 15 minutes. So is it any good? Well, if you have all the time in the world, if you don't value your time on this planet and you don't mind sitting and waiting up to 8 hours for a copy to take place, then I guess it's a bargain. I mean, it does hold 256 gigs. They're not lying. But it's writing the data at about 8 megabytes a second, which is very, very slow. So the price difference between $27.99 and $67.99, it's little more than twice the price, but you're going 20 times faster. Your productivity can multiply by 20 times. I think those flash drives that Micro Center is selling cheap, those are fine for smaller files, maybe smaller capacities, but the large capacity doesn't make any sense to me. It does work. It's very, very slow. So if your time has no value and you'd rather spend $28 and pocket the difference, that's your time on Earth that you want to squander. My time on Earth, I don't know about you, but I don't think I'm going to be around in 50 years. And I don't want to think back at how much time I wasted waiting for files to copy when I'm sitting there looking at the end of my life, wishing I had more time, and then thinking back on how I spent it just to save money that I can't take with me at the end. Doesn't add up for me. But again, I realize I don't share a common attitude that a lot of people have when it comes to money. So that being said, whether or not you think it's good is entirely up to you. I'm going to send both the flash drives and the test results to my sister, and I'm going to have her make a video, quick tips video about it. So I appreciate you sending it. It was kind of an interesting test, but it's never been truer that you get what you pay for. A $28 256 gig flash drive is a piece of crap compared to a $68 256 gig flash drive. I mean, they're not even in the same ballpark. You're going to have a car that can go 8 miles an hour maximum speed, or you can have a car that goes 240 miles an hour maximum speed. Which one do you want? The faster one costs more. The USB flash drive is advertised as USB 3.0. Actually, they advertise it as 3.1, but what shows up is a 3.0. Regardless, it's not writing. The components inside can't write at those speeds. So even though the interface is truly USB 3, the reality is it's more or less USB 2 speeds of the technology inside, the speed of the control of the NAND chips inside of the flash drive. So, it's not fake. It does hold that amount of data. But spending 8.5 hours to get 256 gigs moved, not okay. But what do you want for 28 bucks? Bill, Sony says, I noticed that I did that AMD chipset driver and the computer runs smoother now. Thank you for that. Yes, in fact, they just updated it again on April the 7th. They updated the AMD chipset drivers. How would you know? I don't know. A lot of people confuse the AMD GPU driver auto update with the chipset driver, which has no auto update. They're trying to correct me. They're like, it is an auto update for the video driver, not for the chipset driver. You have to manually seek that out. And if you don't seek it out, you don't get it. AMD needs to do something about that. David Humphreys, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate that. He says he sent me something via PayPal. Thank you. And appreciate that. Appreciate the support. SD to go contributed $5 and David Smith contributed £5. David says, hey, Carey, just a little something for helping to keep us sane in these troubling times. Keep it real. Cheers, David. You know it's troubling times if I'm keeping you sane. I don't think anybody's ever said that to me before. Usually quite the opposite. Thank you, though. I appreciate you joining me here and hanging out with me. You know, while I'm thinking about it, I want to move those dusty videos. Let's take those 2 dust videos and let's move them into a folder just called dust. That way I won't have to search for them anymore. I've been meaning to do that, so I'll just do it now while it's on my mind. Dusty, dusty. There it is. Put one there. Not letting me move it. There it goes. And then I have another one. I've got several. I really need to put them all together. They're all in different places. I should really be more organized on this. Okay, that's done. Michael in Maryland says, I stayed sane by upgrading my PC the other day. Hey, that's something to do. Are those dust videos posted on your YouTube channel? Yes, there's over 1,000 videos on my YouTube channel. Mike says, Carey, any update on your off-site studio? You must have just joined us because I just talked about that for about 20 minutes. So you can rewind this live video and go back. I discussed that quite a lot. Brian Loss has contributed $19.99. He says, I've been working at home for the last month and I literally can't escape my work. Glad to be able to watch your live stream and forget about work for a while. Well, imagine what it's like to be me. I can't escape my work, and when I live stream, I'm live streaming about my work. What do you think I do all day? I work. I try to explain this to people. They don't get it. I don't clock in. I don't clock out. When I wake up, I'm at work, and I'm at work until I go to bed. I might squeeze a half an hour, maybe an hour of TV in at the end of the day. There's nothing on TV. It's all crap. So even when I try to do that, it's like nothing to watch. It's all depressing. I need my Rick and Morty. I think that starts on May 5th, I think. So that'll be good. Nearly there. Mira Ora just recently upgraded the case to a 200R and says, I had one struggle with the top 2 plastic tabs for removing the front panel. Any suggestions? The other 4 tabs are easy. I don't have any problem removing the front bezel on the 200R, which I have back over there. All you got to do is reach your hands up. There's nothing blocking it. You can feel the tab, and you just squeeze the tab and push it out. And the case bezel will come out about that far, enough to unlock the tab, then go to the other side and do the same thing, squeeze it and push on it, and then the top part separates, and then go to the middle and then go to the bottom. There's 2 at the top, 2 in the middle, 2 at the bottom. They're all just as easy to get to. I could do it blindfolded. You just feel for them. There's nothing blocking them, nothing in the way. Just practice, I guess. Just practice. I can understand that, the first time you try something, it may be difficult, but it's not difficult. Like, as far as removing bezels on front covers of cases go, that's one of the easier ones that exists today. Watch Tiger King, my God, only in America. So this big thing about Tiger King is interesting because apparently about 90% of it is, according to the lady that's part of this documentary, completely fraudulent, made up, and imaginatory. And in fact, she wrote a 3,000-word blog with links to court documents and everything explaining that there's evidence she didn't kill her husband, there's evidence that the tigers are not in small cages, there's evidence, and all the things these documentary folks made. She said 10% of it was true, 90% of it's all fraudulent and made up and imaginative. So, you got 2 sides to this whole story here, but this idea that this guy in Tiger King is in jail, this Joe Exotic guy, it suggests to me the person that's saying it's 90% fraudulent and imaginative, she's probably, in my opinion, she's probably right. I understand how people make television shows. I understand how they'll dramatize things for higher viewership. And I understand how they mislead people. Hollywood's known for doing this in order to generate more rage or more, like even here on YouTube. If you give a video a thumbs up and you think thumbs down are bad, you're wrong. A video that has a ton of thumbs up and very few thumbs down, the search engine optimization on YouTube's algorithms likes controversy. So if you have a 50-50 ratio of thumbs up and thumbs down, your video is more likely to be suggested because it has a longer, you keep the viewer longer because it infuriates them or it fascinates them. It keeps them stuck to the screen longer. So if everything's all positive or everything's all bad, the YouTube algorithm does not prefer those videos. So if you see some of my videos are getting thumbs down, it shouldn't upset you. If anything, unless the closer we get to 50-50 on thumbs up and thumbs down, the better the video will be treated by YouTube's algorithms. YouTube likes controversy. Hollywood likes controversy. If there's no controversy, invent it. When I worked at Newegg, they would hire Hollywood crews to do the filming and production work. And some of these guys, they worked for Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And part of the process was getting them, the people on camera, getting them intoxicated so that they would be more interesting on camera. They encouraged them to drink. They provided them with the liquor, my understanding. And the camera crew's job was to follow them around and get it all recorded when they did something outrageous or exhibited some behavior that was related to being intoxicated, and it was something that would get a reaction from the viewer. You want to capture that. That's good TV. How real is that? That's Hollywood. So, enjoy Tiger King, but I think it's important that you understand probably there's a little truth in it, and probably there's a lot of not truth in it. But enjoy it as entertainment, and I wouldn't treat it as a documentary. It's just not it's too biased to be a true documentary. From my understanding. I haven't watched it, I don't want to watch it, it doesn't interest me. But reading that blog, I wish I could remember her name, is very eye-opening, given that she actually provides evidence to everything she says. So I tend to lean more towards her because she doesn't have anything in it other than her reputation, whereas they have a deal with Netflix and they want another deal with Netflix. So the more successful their show is, the more likely Netflix will hire them for another docuseries. So again, you got to wonder what motivations are. I should mention that going back to that 200R bezel, if you have a DVD drive installed, the bezel can be very difficult to take off of any computer case, not just the 200R. So if you're having difficulty removing it, if you watch the way I do it, I always remove anything installed in these 5 1/4 inch bays. Like here, I've got an optical drive up there. I'll take that out because the optical drive has a little edge on it that butts up against the inside of the bezel. So if the optical drive's locked in place, it's hard to get the bezel to move around the optical drive. So take the optical drive out and you'll see the bezel just comes off super easy. And that goes if you have a memory card reader, anything in here clearly is out. It takes 30 seconds to take those drives out. But if you leave the drive in and you try and take the bezel off, it's frustratingly difficult. Steve Devine has contributed $5. He says, as always, keep up on the great vids. Hey, thank you, Steve. The feeder has contributed $5. Says, thanks for the response. I appreciate the info and the honest opinion. I now have a baseline for the future. Bottom line is, when it comes to those, any technology, video cards, motherboards, processors, coolers, there's proof and truth, and you get what you pay for. In general, you pay less, you get less. When you're using free software, you are the product. We talked a lot about this. I got to show you something just because it's funny to me. This is probably going to open a can of worms. But when I invited Steve Bass to come on my show, Steve did not have a microphone. He did not have a camera. He had an old IP camera from 10 years ago, and it would give you like one frame every 3 seconds. It was like going back in time to dial up. I said, Steve, it's like I'm watching Jenny Cam, for people that have been around. So I ordered Steve a camera and a headset. And I was delighted that people thought his audio and video quality were excellent. And I thought, well, I'm ordering a webcam for Steve, I should order one for myself because I have quite an elaborate setup. This does not work with Zoom. In order to get it to work with Skype, I've got to use a piece of software called XSplit. They won't see the capture card. These programs for conferencing are made for normal users that are not technical, and they don't offer the ability to see professional camera equipment. So I thought, for my interviews, probably a webcam would be better, simpler. So I ordered one for myself. Little did I know that people were going to sell out webcams. So what I hold in my hand is a brand new sealed C920S if it'll focus. There it is. Logitech webcam with the privacy door on it. $70. That's regular price. And there are unscrupulous people selling these online on eBay and even on Amazon for anywhere from $200 to $300 right now. Now you should know you don't need necessarily a web camera to join these conferences. There's lots of alternate sources for video that you can use. You can use your cell phone. Your cell phone has a camera in it. And usually the first reaction I get from people is, I don't want to, the interface on the cell phone is, and I'm like, stop. I didn't say you can use your cell phone to do the conference. I said you can use your cell phone as the camera. What does that mean? It means you take your USB charging cable, instead of plugging it into the charger, plug it into the USB port on your computer, and you can download a driver that doesn't work with all phones, but it does work with most Android phones, that will utilize the camera in the phone, just like a web camera. Now you got a camera. You may also have a digital SLR camera. You may have a point and shoot camera. If it's got a USB cable and you can plug it into your computer, there's probably a way to get that video from the camera onto the computer and use it as a web camera. You got to think outside the box. You don't have to have one of these. You might have an old laptop laying around. And I'll tell you what, if you were dead set on getting one of these cameras and you're willing to pay $200 to $300 for it, you can go to Amazon and buy an off-lease business laptop. And all laptops have web cameras built into their lids. For about $250, you can get the whole computer for less than the price of the web cameras today. You can buy a used business leased laptop that's 3 years old, 3 or 4 years old, and get the whole computer for the same price or less as what these are going for right now. There are so many alternatives to web cameras. So don't feel like if you can't get a web camera, you can't join in on Zoom. You probably have something with a camera in it. If you have a Ring doorbell that's got a camera in it, you could probably take it off temporarily and put it on your desk, use it, and then put it back when you're done. Depending on how creative and imaginative you are and how badly you want to do it, there's cameras everywhere and equipment you already have. So we are having a little bit of some connection issues with OBS. That's another thing I'm hoping to resolve at the other location. So you'll notice the stream will go up offline and online. That's on YouTube, or it may be on my internet service provider, but it's not on my end. There's nothing I can do about it. However, the bottom line, I can see OBS has the current status of my signal quality, and it just dropped temporarily. But in the meantime, if you are imaginative and creative, there's probably a camera in something you already have that you may have stopped using, or that you're using and you don't even realize can be used as a webcam. With the cell phone sort of being the default, it seems like everybody's got a smartphone these days. And most of those with a driver can be seen as a web camera and used in Zoom and Skype, etc. All right, so that being said, I will use this. I'm not sure if I'm repeating myself because I'm not sure what went out, but I'm going to use this on a future interview where I don't have to sit. You have to understand, when I do the interviews, it's a complete different configuration than when I do my live stuff. So I have to reconfigure and move everything around. If I can use this will make my life so much easier. I just got lucky. I ordered it before the panic buying took over. Glenn Davies says, hello. Hey, Glenn, good to see you. Doing well. Hope you're doing well. Has anybody in the chat room, we've got 500 people watching live. Have any of you contracted knowingly the COVID virus? I'm kind of curious if any of you have contracted it, if you've gone through it. I don't know anybody personally who has contracted this, thankfully. Did people hoard webcams? Yeah, they sort of went on a buying spree to get webcams to work remotely from home. A friend of mine that I worked with at Intel reached out to me, and he's like, the company he's working for wants to have meetings all the time, every day. And these meetings require webcams. Robert says his sister-in-law is recovering from the virus. Most of you are saying you've not had it. And so far I only see one person saying they've got it. John says he drives a truck over the road for a living. He doesn't have it. Yeah, my friend's a trucker. He doesn't have it. Rick says he doesn't have it, but he's scared because he already has cancer and it would kill me, his doctor says. Sherry says, my man's cousin and aunt have COVID-19, none of my immediate family. Super duper Mark says 3 pastors I know have the virus. Joseph says he had it and recovered from it. Tim says he lost his job. How many of you have lost work or lost your job because of this? I'm just kind of curious. John says he was really sick about the start of February and it was bad. Stephen Bernstein says he doesn't have it, but he talks to 10 to 15 people every day who probably have it. Ben Fitzpatrick said, I lost my job as IT. So what were you doing? What were you doing in IT? Because most IT folks are busier than they've ever been right now. It's interesting you would have lost your job. I'm kind of curious if you lost your job. What were you doing? I understand if you work in a restaurant. I'm just kind of curious. I'm taking my own sort of survey if you want to participate in it, just for the sake of gauging my community and how it's affecting my community, our community. Michael says he lost his job as an auto mechanic. Wow. Onvid Jose says, yes, I've been furloughed. Well, furloughed isn't necessarily losing a job, it's just sort of being put on hold. Still, you need income. You still have bills to pay. David says, I'm not working, but I still get paid. He works as a custodian at a school district. Well, that's good. Ben says he was helping his sister's boss with his job doing PC repair for him. I don't know that I'd call that IT, but a job lost none the same. Tim says he lost his work permit in Singapore and automatically lost his job. Yeah, I've got a friend of mine who works overseas a lot. In fact, to the point where they were denying him entry back into Europe because he had exceeded, I think you can work a total of 6 months, and he had exceeded that. He was forced to have to stay in the United States until his visa renewed for that purpose. And now I imagine he's not going anywhere for a while. Mara Ora says, is there a specific order you have to do to the plastic tabs to remove the panel from the 200R case? When I do it, when I remove the front panel, I start at the top. You don't want to just do one side. And it doesn't matter if you start at the bottom or you start at the top. But you'll use both hands, you'll squeeze the tabs and push the bezel out. So for the sake of argument, I'm going to tell you start at the top. Make sure you removed any drives out of the drive bays with regards to the 5 1/4 inch drive bays first. You'll squeeze those tabs outward and push back, and you'll see the case just move forward about 1/4 inch. Then go to the next set of tabs in the middle, squeeze, and then you'll see the whole bezel move forward another 1/4 inch. Then go to the bottom, squeeze, push them both at the same time, and then pull the whole bezel off. Super easy. That's it. The best advice I can give you is take the bezel off and on, 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 off and on. And through that, you'll get the feel for it, you'll get really good at it. If you're not doing this for a living like I am, and there's no likelihood of you needing to take that bezel off anytime soon, this is a pointless discussion. Rusty Nails contributed $5. He says, this is a great time to be retired. Yeah, but not a great time to be 65 or older, given the statistics of this virus. Pros and cons. Glenn says, traffic problems are down 80%. Here in Phoenix, traffic is down 30%. It's still very crowded out there. Dr. Evil says, Carey, I bought a used 2080 Ti and tested it when I met the seller. It worked fine, but when I got home and installed it, I felt some shock, like a static shock, and now it's not showing up on my PC. I would advise you to contact the manufacturer of the card. It's probably under warranty, and arrange to RMA it. Zero Core says, my mom is 60 and Walmart is still making her work, and she is a greeter, a door person, loss prevention. I don't know that anybody's made to work in America. It's a choice. Although, and I have to tell you, right now in the technical sector, everybody's hiring, like all the big guys. Facebook's doing a ton of hiring right now. When it comes to non-technical, just labor, Amazon just hired like 75,000 people. We're looking to hire more. It doesn't have to stay at Walmart. You know what I'm saying? Like you can get a job somewhere else. However, my attitude has always been, if a job's paying me really, really well, then it's difficult to leave that job. You know, I'm more tolerant of nonsense. But if the job is paying me minimum wage, it's not a big loss if I lose it. Now, I realize for some people that may be all they have, and they risk having nothing. But when you weigh that against, let's say, for example, she doesn't want to go to work because she's concerned that at her age, this virus could impact her, her mortality. And so Walmart says, well, if you're not going to appear here, then we're going to lay you off or we're going to fire you. Then you can file for unemployment. And what unemployment pays compared to how many hours she's working at Walmart could be equal to or greater than, going to work. I don't know, assuming you're in the United States. I know that when I was on unemployment, I was getting some job offers that paid me a fraction over what unemployment was paying me. I'm like, well, it's not worth it to go through the expense of gas and travel and getting dressed and going out. I'll stay on unemployment before I take that job. I had people offer to pay me under the table so I could keep the unemployment and get their check so that they could pay me less. And I told them no too, because that didn't sit well with me. But when you have a job that pays you well, it's more difficult to leave it. If you have a job that pays you squat, and perhaps won't even hire you full time, so you don't have any health insurance, you're not losing much. And if the risk is I'm going to go to work and get sick and potentially die, I'd rather have issues with bills than issues with the comfort of my hospital bed or my ventilator. But that's just me. That's just the way I am. Marty's contributed $20. Hey, Marty, thank you so much. He says, good night, everyone. Love you all. Hey, Marty, right on. Thanks. I see the streams going up and down some more. Bear with it, guys. It's YouTube or it's my ISP. Not much I can do about that. And you can always check the little the gear icon in the lower right corner of the video and make sure it's set to 720 or 1080 so the video looks clear. When the stream ends like that and starts up like that, a lot of times it defaults to a lower resolution, which may look to you like the video is blurry. And you'll have to change that on your end. Chester says, if I can't get $1 to dig a ditch, it's okay to take 75 cents to cover it up. I'm not sure what that means. Zenzetsu Shiragain has contributed $5. Thank you. $20 from the feeder. Thanks for that support. He says, good night, Tamati. You guys rock. Thank you so much. Mira Ora says, my job pays me more than I actually need, but they aren't treating me well. So I just did a phone interview with another company about 45 minutes into the stream. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. There's some people, they have this attitude that this is the only job I have. There's nothing I can do, so I have no choice. You do have a choice. Saying you don't have a choice is a choice, whether you realize it. But I'm not the one who lives with your decisions, so don't listen to me, because it's your benefit and your consequences, so you make the right decisions for you. Chester says, working is better than out of work. I don't know that I agree with that. I've had some jobs that were pretty demeaning, and in the way that I was treated, in the way that I was spoken to, and what was asked of me. You know, one of my favorite examples is in the 90s, they said, we want you to wear a pager one weekend a month, and you're going to rotate with 3 other people, and each one of you will wear the pager one weekend a month. And I said, well, you know, this wasn't mentioned in the interview. This wasn't mentioned during the negotiation of salary. So I did not agree to this. So how are you compensating me for the change in our arrangement? He said, well, what do you mean? You want to get paid to do nothing? I said, yeah. It's exactly what I want to get paid for. I want to get paid for not getting drunk, because if the pager goes off, I've got to be sober. I want to get paid for not leaving town for the weekend, because if the pager goes off, I'm expected to show up. I want to get paid to not go out to dinner or a movie, because if the pager goes off, I'm expected to stop what I'm doing and go. He goes, yeah, but if the pager goes off, you get time and a half. I go, and if it doesn't go off? He goes, then you don't get paid. I go, but I also can't do anything. I can't go anywhere. So I need an hourly rate for carrying the pager. He goes, that's preposterous. I go, it's not preposterous. Do you think a surgeon on call at the hospital wears a pager for free? And this is the 90s. Doctors don't wear pagers for free. And I'm not working for free, and I'm not going to do it. When I worked these jobs, the customers always loved me. The people that I was there to help had nothing but praise, and my immediate bosses hated me. I was a big thorn because I wouldn't do what they told me to do. They changed the rules. Like, you can't just change the rules. Yeah, I'm the boss and you're the worker and this is how it works. I tell you what to do. Like, that's not how it works. I have a job description, and what you're wanting me to do has nothing to do with the job description, has nothing to do with our interview and our negotiated salary. If you want to renegotiate that, then let's talk. But you don't get to change it unless you change the compensation with it. I said, yes, I can. I said, no, you can't. And they said, well, you can find another job. We can find techs like you a dime a dozen. I go, yeah, and companies with your attitude are a dime a dozen. I can go get another job like that. So that didn't work out so well. Being more diplomatic, handling that situation a little better. But I was so offended, it just escalated. But yeah, they wanted me to wear the pager, and if the pager went off, you got time and a half. And if the pager didn't go off, you didn't get paid. Like, no, that's not working for me. Well, nobody else is complaining. Well, they're idiots. I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to allow you to walk on me. Let them do it. If they don't mind it, let them do it. I'm not doing it. So I don't agree that working at all is better than not working at all. It depends. It depends on how you're treated. It depends if you qualify for unemployment. I mean, you're paying into it as an American citizen, and if you need it, that's what you paid into it for. There are people who take advantage. There are people who exploit it, but that's their karma. That's their problem. And that's the government's problem. It's not my problem. If you legitimately need it, if the job you're at isn't paying you well and they're not treating you well, and especially if you're concerned for your public health, your own personal health, there's a point where money shouldn't be your main concern, and that the unemployment is there to rescue you. It's not enough to live like a king, but you should be able to make ends meet. You might have to tighten your belt. Which one's worse? I mean, I'd sooner tighten my belt than wear a pager for free. But that's me. That's just the way I am. And of course, why wouldn't somebody want you to work for free? Why wouldn't they argue with me and try to convince me that I should do what everybody else is doing? Nobody else is complaining. Therefore, you shouldn't either. That's the logic. But to whose benefit? It's to their benefit if I agree with them. There's no benefit to me unless the pager goes off according to them and I make time and a half. Not a deal. I'm not a gambler. I'm not interested in gambling. It's not a deal. I don't agree with it, and we didn't agree with it in the job interview. I've had a lot of bosses change the job on me. They add a responsibility and don't add compensation. I've had a lot of jobs start me at a lower salary and say, you know, if you prove yourself in time, we'll give you a bigger salary, only to find out that they didn't have it in their power ever to increase salaries, that was done by somebody higher up in corporate. Too bad, so sad. He's sort of like buying a used car where they're looking out for themselves. They're not looking out for you. In my experience, they expect you to do what they tell you to do and to take what they're offering. And think they're doing you a favor the whole time. In that scenario, I would rather not work than, so that's why I say working versus not working is not always better. Dignity is very important to me. You know, they said that during the Holocaust. Hard work will set you free, right? And then they murdered a bunch of people. So yeah, I'm not joining that line of thinking. Sound like I have a package arrive. Let me just check my. It's not here yet. I have some parts arriving. My friend Ron sent me. We did an ITX build with a what was it, the TU-100 or something, portable LAN case, and we're putting a Ryzen 5 2600 in there, I think. Or is it a 3600? I think it's a 3600 with a mini ITX board, 1660 Super. Everything's got to be tiny, and so I ordered a new power supply for it. I got the graphics card, I got the motherboard, I got the 3600X, but it looks like the cooler's too big, the case is too thin, and the cooler won't allow the panel to go on. And I think I'll make a video out of that. Why you want the 3600 versus a 3600X based on your case design. And for gaming, it's probably not going to really have any performance difference anyway, right? So we'll talk about that, and then with the 3600X, I'll make another build out of it, no big deal. I've got plenty of RAM, so I'll find some RAM. I've got plenty of M.2 drives laying around. We'll slap something in there. And I'm just waiting on a power supply and the 3600 CPU, and I'll have that mini ITX build coming up. Now he shipped me his computer. I showed you guys the box. I have not even taken the computer out of the box yet. So I like to keep my videos genuine and authentic, and for that reason, I will unbox it live on camera, and we'll take a look at what's left in there. He stripped it for some parts when it wasn't working, so I think the SSD's been removed, the GPU's been removed, but we wouldn't reuse those anyway. I think the power supply is probably still good, but it's several years old, and if we're going to replace all these parts, why not just change out the power supply too? And that way, if anybody wants to build the same system, apart from the case, which I don't think they make anymore, I'll have a complete parts list. If I reused any old parts, you wouldn't probably be able to get them anymore, and that means you wouldn't be able to duplicate what you watch me do. So for that reason, and the reason that the power supply is old, it's adding $100 to the cost of the system, but at the end of the day, I think it makes for a more complete video that you guys can follow along with. I don't do many ITX builds. I think I've done 3 in the past. This was one of those 3. And we're going to take all the components out of it, except the optical drive. We're going to keep the optical drive in there, but he said the connector was broken on it. I had an adapter on there that broke, but supposedly the connector on the drive itself is still okay. And I use a different adapter now. I don't use that hard plastic adapter anymore. I use a cable, because the power connector is much smaller on these slot loading DVD drives. So that's an upcoming video here. As soon as I get the rest of these systems done, I'll work on that. And by then, those parts should arrive. Mike and Diane said my friend had a company that required him to work through this pandemic, and their incentive was a free lunch of Subway sandwiches. He quit the next day. So the problem when you quit is you don't necessarily get unemployment. You have to be fired or laid off. Although they might be making exceptions to that right now. I don't know. One of the problems, and I can't emphasize this enough, is when you have an employer who doesn't pay you well, it's not a big loss if you lose the job or if you walk away from the job. When an employer treats you well, you look at places that have high employee retention, like Costco has high employee retention. There's a grocery chain called Winco where the employees are part owners of the store. They're directly responsible and profit from the success and failure of the store. These employees tend to stay longer. Even if the job doesn't pay as well, if you're treated well, if you like what you do, there's something good about it that keeps you coming back. If it's just a paycheck, and it's not a very big paycheck, it's easy to walk away from it. It's not a big loss. If you're making $120,000 a year and you have no other job to go to, I can understand putting up with a bunch of crap. But if you're making $24,000 a year or less, you can pretty much get any job to pay you that. That's nothing. You can find those jobs all day long. Unskilled labor jobs, managers at In-N-Out Burger clear $100,000 a year. A manager at In-N-Out Burger clears $100,000 a year. I got no problem with being a manager at In-N-Out Burger. So all I'm saying is, for an employee to show loyalty to a company that doesn't show loyalty or value back, what's the loss for the employee to leave? What's the point of staying? Something's better than nothing? Well, while you're taking that something, you might miss the opportunity for something bigger because you're busy over here picking up dimes and someone over there is offering dollars and you didn't notice it. Something to think about. Okay, I guess I can put the fan on the CPU heatsink now, huh? I suppose I should probably do some work today. It's been fun catching up with you. I like hanging out with you guys. And you can see the wire I talk about, like that whole thing just stripped off. And that bare wire, you don't want to keep that in your system because if it gets brittle and it breaks off, it could short out behind the motherboard or against electronic components, and the smoke will come out. The smoke will come out tomorrow. And I need a nylon zip tie. I want to wire manage that CPU fan right now before I install it because it'll be impossible to reach once it's installed. So we'll grab some nylon zip ties here. One ought to do the trick. These are just 4-inch nylon zip ties. I go through these by the hundreds every month. They're very inexpensive, so sometimes I screw up and have to cut away a brand new one that I just put on incorrectly. But because they're so inexpensive, who cares? Cut it off, throw it away, use it. Do it right. No matter how many times you've got to redo it until you get it right. Start making that a new habit. You become more efficient, more proficient, and always keep your work consistent. If I screw it up, I will screw it up across the board on everything. They'll all be broken the same way. lot of people having allergies this time of year. And I think I'm having sniffles because of that. Okay, so we're going to put on the fan. Let's see, this is going to go on this way. Put that on there, that on there. I want this side to bring the air in. The side's going to blow through that metal heat sink. I want this cable down at the bottom, so this is going to go on like this. With the cable down at the bottom, it'll plug straight into the board, and cable management will look nice and clean on there. And then we'll put the other side on, the same exact thing here, which is we go from the front. We use these hooks. They go into the mounting holes. The dog hair is optional. You don't have to include that. Put that on there, that on there, and that looks like that. And then we'll put this on to the CPU fan header up here, the top of the board. You can always read your instruction manual to see where your CPU fan header is on your board. You probably can't see anything there. Oh, this one has two. So there's one on the top, one above the other one, and I don't know, here's my flashlight. I don't know which one's the CPU fan header, the main one. I remember I looked this up in the past because it doesn't tell me on the board. Usually on the board it's written somewhere. This is a, I can't even read the make and model of the board. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to guess, and we'll see what happens. Top one or bottom one? I'm going to try the top one. And if I'm wrong, I can take it off and put it on the bottom. Not the end of the world. So that plugs the fan on. And then the fan is going to sit in these little grooves on the Mugen 5. It's got cutouts specific for the fan. And I have to hold these little metal brackets back like this, seat it into the socket, push it down as far as push the fan in as far as it'll go. And then I just pull back on the metal bracket and it seats in between the fins on the heatsink on the top and the bottom. And now we should be able to power this on. And we can check the effectiveness rather of this cooler versus the Hyper 212. That also means I can put power back onto the graphics card, which this power cable right here is sitting here. It needs to be plugged in if we're going to expect any video to come out. We've got the front fan. We moved it from the top here to the front. That's all hooked up, good to go. These are the spare parts for the cooler. These are spare screws. The customer can also have the screwdriver that the Mugen comes with. I should be done with these two drivers and the flashlight, so I will put these away. And I need a power cable, so I can plug this bad boy in. I've got a power cable right here. I realize the stream is continually going up and down. So bear with me as we struggle through these bandwidth issues. You may have to reload the browser. If you get that circle going around, you can hit refresh or just close the browser, reopen it again, go back to the link to the live video. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do about that other than acknowledge that it's existing. It's not just you. Let's see, let's go this way. Now, when I run a cable across my desk, that's when you find I move my drink. And the reason I do that is as I rotate the computer around, all the cables move and it can knock a drink over. Otherwise, I'm very self-conscious about where my drink is at all times. It makes a lot of people nervous, and that makes me happy. I like to make people uncomfortable. I'm a responsible adult. My videos are live. If I knock a drink over, I can't edit it out. So if you see a video where I did that, you let me know. In the meantime, I'm going to grab an HDMI cable. I've got the keyboard and mouse still plugged in from last time. And I'm going to plug into your monitor at home, because I don't have a monitor here to use, so I will use yours. sure the keyboard and mouse power is turned on to these. I always turn them off to save the batteries. That's unnecessary. They have auto power saving features, but I'm retentive that way. Okay, hit the power switch. Make sure these fans are all turning. We'll put you on the input of the computer. We should get a signal here in a minute. Here we go. Hopefully the new RAM I put in works. The other RAM I had was 32 gigs. This is 16 gigs, as I mentioned earlier. And I haven't tested it yet. So hopefully the RAM is happy with this motherboard. And we don't have a repeat of the same problem that we were solving. And then we can run Prime 95 and watch these temps on here. So I'm going to go to Prime 95. Oh, wrong mouse. I'm going to go to Prime 95. And we're going to start Prime 95. I'm not going to hit OK yet. And then I'm going to go to the HW Info program so we can monitor our temps. And we are looking at the, I never know what it's called, TC. Thanks, Lyle. It's bumping my camera. It's in here somewhere. Temperatures, motherboard, CPU, no. Here, this is what I want, this TC, TL, TD, TDI. Keep an eye on these. We'll see if this does better than the Hyper 212 Evo. It's a nice comparison, back to back, of all the same hardware. All we're doing is changing the cooler and the thermal compound. Let's run this for 15 minutes. Remember, this here is our current temperature, which is 57.5. This is the current minimum that's been read since the software was started. And this is our current maximum temperature that we've achieved. And we're going to keep an eye on that, knowing that there's a mathematical thing you've got to do with AMD. It's not a true representation of temperature. So rather than try and figure all that out, I'm just going to take a look at these results and compare them to the Hyper 212 results. The lower number is preferred. And we'll see if we achieve similar numbers, higher numbers, or lower numbers within the same time frame. We'll let the test run for a total of 15 minutes. I'm walking around putting stuff away while you guys are watching the test take place. And multitasking, because we need that test to run a full 15 minutes, and we can compare back to back against the Hyper 212 Evo. So not only is this cooler, I think, a better value, it's easier to install, I also think it's a better, more effective cooler. But what I think and what it does in reality may be two different things. So we'll just test it and see for ourselves. I'm not interested in hearsay. I'm interested in evidence. I'm interested in proof. People can talk all day long. It means nothing to me. Show me the evidence. Because my videos are live and unedited, I have no idea what's going to happen, and you know everything you see here is genuine and real. You've seen the entire upgrade of this PC. You've seen how it was when it came in. You'll see how it leaves. You'll see the difference. And if that doesn't convince you that everything is real, I don't know what will. I have a couple of contributors to the channel that specifically wanted their contributions to go towards the giveaways for disabled American veterans, and I want to talk to them a little bit about the entitlement I've experienced and the lack of gratitude I've seen, and ask them how they want me to proceed, because ultimately it's their contributions that make these giveaways possible, and we might have to change the process of who's qualifying for these in order to avoid that sort of discouragement that's potentially impacting other people who would be grateful from receiving equipment that could be very beneficial to them. Let me try and get my other camera back on, and I'll put it in the corner. You'll see I'm starting to lose a lot of light, so I'm going to have to wrap this up here real soon. So I think after this test, we'll wrap it up. Just looking through the chat, see if there's any questions I'm missing. Blue Dog Ron says, I just got that ultra compact low profile keyboard and mouse that you have, and it's great. Yeah, I agree. I mean, especially for what I'm doing. I wouldn't want it as my main keyboard because I pound on it too much, but for something portable and durable, and I don't have to worry about batteries, it's perfect. Got 592 people watching live right now. Thanks, you guys, for hanging out with me today. And I know you're social distancing. You're not likely watching me on a cell phone on a bus. KJ3N wants to know if I prefer modular or semi-modular power supplies. For the most part, I prefer non-modular power supplies for most end users and businesses because nobody can find the cables. There's nothing more frustrating to me than wanting to do something simple like add another drive and I need a cable and they don't know where the cables are. On the other hand, building a computer, I prefer a modular power supply because there's less to do on the cable management side. So it depends on who the owner of the computer is going to be. When you're building a computer for a business, the employee that you built it for may not be at the company any longer when it comes time to upgrade or replace a component in that computer that would require the power cable. In fact, all the employees may have changed depending on the company. And nobody knows what the cables are or what you're talking about, let alone where they are. So for most companies, I prefer a non-modular power supply. And for most end users that are not very organized, once again, a non-modular power supply is preferred so that we don't have to go looking for cables or we don't have to postpone a repair until I can order replacement cables from Amazon or Newegg or something, which you can do. It just takes a 10-minute job and turns it into a 10-day job, right? I have to go home, wait for the part to arrive, go back on site again. Not pleasant. On the other hand, if I'm talking to somebody who's very organized and the looks of their case is very important, they've got a clear glass or plastic window, and they don't want to deal with a lot of cable management. I don't want to deal with a lot of cable management. They know where they're going to put their cables. They're very organized people, and that's what they want to buy. I'm more than happy to put a modular or a semi-modular power supply in. It doesn't matter to me. Semi-modular means the power supply has the motherboard power connectors built in. They don't come off. Who cares? I suppose fully modular is a little easier to change the power supply out. If it were to go bad, you don't have to redo any cable management. You can literally unplug every cable from the back of the power supply, take the 4 screws out of the power supply, put the new power supply in and hook the same cables right back into the back of the power supply without cutting a single nylon zip tie and redoing any cable management. On a semi-modular, you'd have to cut the cable management ties to free up the CPU power and motherboard power. But the way I do cable management, those are tied away separately. Either way, it's not a big deal. So I don't have a preference personally other than protecting myself in future upgrades and repairs for most clients who are unorganized and most businesses as well to stay non-modular all the time. And none of these people, by the way, have clear panels on their cases. This was all for business use. Not that it would matter, because the cable management's all in the back anyway. Fair question, though. How do you feel about power supply cables from Cable Mods? I only used it once, and that was on Thready. I don't have any feelings one way or the other. It's like, who cares? When you ask me about the color of cables, I don't care about the color of the cable. I really don't care. That's for hobbyists and enthusiasts. I've never once dropped a computer off to a business where they didn't like the color of the cables. It's never happened. Kevin Billerbeck has contributed $20. Hey, thank you, Kevin. He said, it's been a while since I've sent any money, so here's to the channel. Right on. Thank you very much. Make sure Kevin's a moderator. Yeah, he is. 8 minutes and 35 seconds into the test. How are we doing on this so far? Let's take a look here. Full screen on my side so I can read it. These temps are far lower than the temps. So we're 8.5 minutes. We're almost at 9 minutes in on the test. And if we're looking at 9 minutes in on the test with the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo, I'm pretty sure it was much hotter than this. I'm sure in editing my sister can bring that up and put it on the screen side by side, and you'll see how much better this cooler is. And further, this Mugen 5 I think is also quieter if we're listen. And I'm leaning into it. I can barely hear the fans. And I think the Hyper 212 Evo fan was running at full speed and it still wasn't keeping up. I do believe we were thermal throttling with the Hyper 212 Evo at some point during this test. We're 9 minutes and 40 seconds in, and remember I started my timer a good 20, 30 seconds after I started the test because I had to walk over and get it. So I always give the benefit. I don't start the timer first, right? So I'm really torturing the heck out of this computer, far more than a customer ever would. And knowing that it won't overheat at this torture test, my assurance that when I give it back to the customer, there's nothing they're going to do to cause it to overheat or to thermal throttle. That's why I do it. I don't run benchmarking software to try and figure out if I'm getting the most amount of frames per second. I'm figuring out that I'm getting the right amount. It's a variance, and if I'm within the ballpark, it's good. I'm not trying to set any records here. The problem with setting records is they come at a cost. They come at a cost of time, productivity, and reliability. I'm not interested in that. Not interested in impressing anybody but my customer. Whether or not you're impressed is not important. It's nice when people appreciate and see the value in what I do, but it is not my primary objective. My only primary objective is to get the computer fixed for that specific customer and to make sure that that specific customer is going to be happy. The fact that I show it to all of you is either bravery or stupidity on my part because it invites opinions on how I did it wrong. The bottom line is that if my customer is happy, or my customer sees value, then my customer refers me and my customer comes back again when they need me. That's how I stay in business. I don't stay in business from strangers' opinions on the internet. In case you were wondering how that works. I don't know why UPS isn't here. I keep checking my door. I'm waiting for that processor to arrive. And got nothing. Nothing. I got an email saying that the driver was in my area, but he's not here yet. So we're now at 11 minutes, 10 seconds shy of 12 minutes on the test, and the computer just went to sleep, didn't it? Wake up, wake up. So when the computer does that, what's happening is the timing for the monitor, it's set to like if there's no mouse movement in 10 minutes, it saves the screen, right? It disables, and that's what you just witnessed when I walked away. It went to sleep. Murphy's Law. It didn't reset or anything like that. It's just went to sleep. And when I say went to sleep, I don't mean it literally went into sleep mode. I usually set the power options to allow a minimum processor speed of 5%, maximum of 100%, disable the solid state drive from ever powering down, disable everything from powering down except and only the monitor. And then it's just a matter if you want it to be 10 minutes or an hour. You set that yourself. The default is 10 minutes. And so because it's been more than 10 minutes, we're at 12 minutes and 47 seconds, the monitor, the signal to the video card shut down to save power. So nothing to freak out about. That's normal standard operating procedure. And I got to make my screen big again so I can read it and we can see where I am on my temps. Just crossed over 13 minutes, and the hottest temp we've seen is 71.4 degrees centigrade or Celsius. I guess centigrade shows my age. Old people call it centigrade. It's the same thing. I want to say at 13 minutes in, we were much, much hotter than this on the Hyper 212 Evo. Once again, I'll ask my sister in editing to put the two temps side by side and put some overlay text on the Hyper 212 setting, and we can watch how the only difference is we put the Mugen 5 on. That's it. And the Mugen 5 runs currently $48.99 on Amazon as I'm recording this video on April 15th, 2020. That's been the standard price for a long time. And the Hyper 212 Evo runs around $30, $35, I want to say. So it's not, the Mugen 5 is not quite twice the price, but it's nearly twice the cooler. And the installation is far easier, and it doesn't require the replacement of the backplate that the Hyper 212 Evo does. And it does a better job, and it's quieter, and it comes with a free screwdriver. What more do you want? I mean, when we come over there and blow on it for you? 14 minutes and 30 seconds in, and maximum temp 71.4. We were over 90 at this point in the test, I want to say, with the 212 Evo. And everything else is the same. Nothing else has changed. And of course, the way I apply the thermal compound, but even that's not going to make more than a 2 or 3 degree difference. So this is a major difference, and this is all on the cooler. If you're looking for better cooling, don't look at your thermal compound, look at your cooler. If you want a faster car, stop focusing on your tires. Focus on your engine. So we've just crossed over 15 minutes. I'm going to let it go 5 more minutes just because I'm sadistic and I want to torture the heck out of this thing. Would having the side panel on make a temperature difference? It depends on the case design. If the case is designed properly, the temperature should actually go down. And the reason the temperature should go down is we're forcing airflow to move from the front, across the center, and through the back. With the panel being off, air is allowed to escape, and it's not effectively. Imagine that this was water. Okay, imagine we were pushing water through the system, and we were pushing the water in from the front and out through the back, and we take the side panel off. What happens to the water? If you've got enough water pressure, it's still going to come out through the back, but it's also going to flow out through the side, and it's going to interfere with the flow. The amount of air you're moving from the front to the back is going to be reduced because it's all escaping out the side. Now, not all cases are designed by engineers. Some are just. I met a guy at Corsair who designed a case for Corsair, and I said, "What education do you have?" He said, "None." He just designed the case because he wanted to, and Corsair made it. And it was, in my opinion, a horror. I didn't say anything. I told him I wasn't a fan of the design because he had an inverted motherboard and everything was backwards. And I asked what qualified him for the cooling, and he said, "Well, cooling's not a problem." So that was sort of the answer. I was disappointed that a company as big as Corsair would allow an entry-level employee with no engineering experience to design a case. But that goes to show that cooling is not that important on consumer parts. You can get away with a lot of stuff. So therefore, a lot of cases that are designed are not designed properly, and that the temp may go up when the cover is put on. If the case is designed properly with the airflow in mind, the temp should go down when the side panel is put on. Just speaking logically, you're keeping that air constricted and flowing and moving all in one direction. In either case, with the side panel on or off, it shouldn't make more, again, than more than 3 to 5 degrees difference. If your system is running so hot that 3 to 5 degrees of difference makes a difference, you got something else wrong, in my opinion. We're crossing over 17 minutes and 45 seconds on the timer. And let's see, go full screen on this again. And 79.8. We're still 20 degrees below our maximum from the 212 Evo. I find that fascinating, and proof is in the pudding. Caleb wants to know if I have any advice on shipping a computer. Take it to FedEx. Ask FedEx to pack it for you. They'll charge you about $25 for packing and labor and the box. FedEx uses a double-walled box. And lay the case down inside of the box. Don't ship the computer upright. You want the computer laying flat with at least 2 inches of packing material, bubble wrap, whatever, 2 inches around all of it. Make sure that when it's laying flat, that if you have a video card, that it's sitting upright. You don't want your video card hanging upside down. It'll fall out, possibly damage the whole system. So lay the case, instruct FedEx, and watch them do it. That they lay the computer down flat with the video card down with gravity, and then they'll cut the height of the box down. And if you follow those steps, you should have no problem. That's how I've shipped computers. I've never had a problem. Excuse me. Always insure the package as well for whatever the value of the computer is, and require a signature so that the package isn't left at somebody's porch for a porch pirate to steal. Always require a signature. Now, FedEx does that automatically. If your value is $500 or more, if you insure for $500, it's $2 fee. If you're not insuring it for anything, but you just want the signature is a $3 fee. Do the math. Pay for the $500 insurance and get the free signature. Saves you $1, and you're insured up to $500. A system like this is probably worth $1,000. I'll insure it for $1,000 when I ship it back, and it will be shipped back exactly like I told you. Now, my FedEx store knows me. When they see me bring a computer in, they exactly know how I want it packed. Those veteran giveaway computers, they don't have video cards in them. We're using onboard video, so those really can be packed in any way. Doesn't matter. There's no proper way to lay it down. I've got a video where I built a computer for Mike Smith, and I show Mike unbox it, and you can see how it was packed. Mike shows the package as it arrives, and he unboxes it live on camera so that you'll see how it was packed. And that's why I made that video, and that's why I asked Mike to film receiving it. It will cost you, depending on how far you're shipping the computer, you'll spend about $25 for the box, packing material, and labor. FedEx will not be able to deny the insurance because it wasn't packed right, because they're the ones who packed it. That's often what happens when you file a claim on insurance for packages, is they'll immediately say you didn't pack it properly. So if you pay them to pack it, yeah, you're spending $25, but on the other hand, if you're shipping $1,000, what's $25? It's worthy to spend $25 for peace of mind that if something happens to that package, they can't use that as an excuse not to reimburse you. They're providing the double-walled box. They're providing all the effort to lift it and pack it and do all that. They're doing all that labor. And then I ship FedEx Ground, which is the cheapest way to ship within the U.S. And depending on the distance, it will cost me total somewhere between $60 if I'm shipping, say, to California, to $120 to $140 if I'm shipping to Florida, Maine, Massachusetts, going clear across the United States. The bigger, heavier, and further the package goes, the more it costs. That same package will cost me less to ship to California or Nevada or Colorado or Utah than it would to ship to North Carolina, etc. If you look at a map of the United States and you look where Arizona is, and look where Florida and Georgia and Virginia and New York and Connecticut, Rhode Island, Vermont, New Hampshire, do the math, it's over 2,000 miles, nearly 3,000 miles in some cases. Almost the distance. Going from Seattle to Miami is like going from New York to London. So that's the kind of distance we're talking about. And the further it goes, the longer it's on the road. The longer it's on the road, the more prone it is to damage, right? So shorter deliveries or closer deliveries, which are less likely to occur damage. In shipping and packing in this method, I've had no problems at all. Now, shipping UPS, I've had problems, lots of problems. Cases arrive dented quite often. All right, we've crossed over 22 minutes. We're just near 23 minutes, which is far longer than I intended to go on the test. And the maximum temp was still 79.8. Now watch these temps. Watch how fast this current temp drops when I stop this Prime 95 test. Let me grab the right mouse. So right here, you'll see the current temperature of 79.5. And I'm going to go over here and go to the test and hit stop and confirm it. And as soon as I confirm the stop, watch that temperature right here. Watch how fast this comes down. I can also hear the fans slow down. They're barely audible now. And they weren't that loud just a moment ago. But now, I can't hear them at all. I'd say that's very successful. I'm very happy with the end result of the Mugen 5. I think it was worth the time to wait for the backplate. And I will ship this exactly as I described, with this facing down, so this big heavy heatsink and this video card are not hanging upside down. That's my main concern, with at least 2 inches of packing material completely around it in a double-walled cardboard box, shipped FedEx ground. It'll probably cost about $100. The veterans computers I gave away, 3 of those were $88 a piece. One went to Massachusetts, one went to Florida, one went to New York. And then the other one went to, I think, California. That one was $60. But that includes the packing and materials. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for me for today. I hope everybody's staying safe and doing well. And I want to say thank you to all my friends in blue for helping to keep it civil in the chat room today. It looks like it was a pretty good day with regards to trolls. And Caleb says, where can I find that video with the unboxing? I think that's the video called Building the Beast. I think if you search YouTube for Carey Holzman Beast and look for a video that was done, it was either late 2019, early 2020. I think it was right around December. Yeah, because Mike received it the day before Christmas. Watch for a video, although the edited video is probably out before that. I mean, just after that. It's probably done in January, the edited version. But it's called Building the Beast, I want to say. It's the Beast. So look for the Beast video. Look for the edited, not the live. That's what I would do. Thanks to everybody who contributed today during the live stream and for all your questions and participation. I appreciate that. I might have missed a few, so let's work our way backwards here. Kevin Billerbeck and David Kane. David contributed $5. He says, Carey, had to replace my 750-watt Cooler Master modular power supply. Money being no object, what do you recommend brand-wise? I prefer EVGA. I think they have much better support, and statistically, the amount of failures I've had with them has been very low. Bebo has contributed $2. Zenzetsu Shiragain has contributed $5. The Feeder, Madi OL, Rusty Nail, Hugh Wong contributed $2. He says, glad to see you again. Glad you're well, Carey. Hey, Hugh, always good to see you. The Feeder, again, thanks for sending that USB flash drive. It was an interesting test. And I will, as I mentioned, I'm going to make that a project for my sister to do. I've got all the test results, so all she has to do is piece it together and narrate it. Steve Devine, thank you, and Brian Loss, SD to go, David Smith, Madi OL and the Feeder again, Justin Havu, and Director Random, I missed this one earlier, contributed $4. He says, where's the best place to mount a radiator? That depends on the case. I always try and mount, what's the matter? Come on in. That was weird. I always try and mount radiators for liquid coolers at the top, but it's not always possible. Depends on the case. Sometimes you got to mount them in the front. You do what you can with the case and the size radiator you've got. Maybe look on YouTube for other people with similar cases to figure out where they put their radiators and use that as your guide. Tony Wallow, thank you. He contributed $1.99. Wilhelm Gordon, and Metalbird Blogger, and Michael in Maryland. Alfred Roberts, Madi, thank you so much for your contributions today. Samuel Ramos, 13 Grands, Tech Guy, Ian Costello, Madi again. Christoph Esch with 2 contributions. Marx Brothers, 715. Mira Ora, Robert Rakovic, Daniel Sprouse, Gerald DeMonte, Gerard DeMonte, Duga 57, Josh Jordan, William Cregan, John Craig, Michael in Maryland again, Thomas Robinson, Franklin Adams, Ralph Souther, Coggen, Rick Rubisat, Gary Tatum, Sterling, Radio DX, Ralph Souther again, Andrew Dorset, Peter Vigian. He says, thank you for your advice and info. I upgraded my laptop and built a great PC. All due to you. I love it. Thank you. Johnny Craig contributed $2. Kevin Sears and Steve Warrington. And our first contribution today was from Rick Hubbard. Thanks, you guys, for being my sponsors, for supporting the channel, for supporting these videos, and for making this possible. I am going to try to get over to the other location and do a live stream later tonight if I can. It's getting late already. But I very much am interested in what 3 megabytes is going to do, if it's even doable. So I'm going to try and get over there. You might see another live stream from me in a couple hours. It'll probably be short, but you get a sneak peek at what I'm doing over there. In the meantime, I appreciate you joining me today. Thank you so much for your participation in the chat room. Thanks for tuning in. And I'll be back just as soon as time permits. So, it looks like this is pretty much done now. All I'm going to do is a little light cable management here. Put the side panels back on, and this will go back out to Shelby and Dwayne. I appreciate their patience as well. I've got 2 more builds that I started 2 months ago that I haven't finished. I want to get those done and those shipped out. And I have 3 new builds to start. Plus, I still have to do one for Madi. We haven't figured out exactly. We've got half the parts. The other half of the parts we still have to decide on. And I had the mini ITX build to do. And I've got 2 or 3 other repairs that people want me to do that I'm turning away for right now. So, things are super busy, which is good. Other things going on in my personal life I can't talk about, but we'll revisit that maybe in half a year or 2, or a year, and I can tell you about health-wise what's going on with some family members and things like that. But I'm not going to bring it up right now. It's not the time, and too much speculation. But in the meantime, everybody's good. Everything's going fine. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe. Keep your social distancing. Will help flatten the curve, as they like to say. Just don't be a part of the curve. How about that? Don't participate in it. And I'll do my best to create content, keep you occupied, keep you distracted, and you can do the same for me by tuning in. I'll see you all again very, very soon. And until then, I gotta find an outro. Which one do I want to use? My sister makes all these great intros for me. I like to mix them up. I guess we're gonna do this one. No, this one. Okay. See y'all very soon. Bye for now.